Hello, everyone. Welcome to summer. School is over, school is out. I'm gonna call the Thursday, May 30th, 2024, 6 p.m. Policy Committee Subcommittee agenda to order. Connor, could we please have roll call?
Meg Bonte,
Here.
Lori Hayes,
Here.
Jason Graham. Here. Janet Holmes,
Here.
Will McIntosh.
Here.
Drew Mullins.
Present.
Monica Gary.
Present.
Marcy Parker. Bob Schneider. Crystal Bluish. Chris Yakubowski.
Here.
David Brown. Deontay Diggs.
Present.
Pamela Young.
Present.
Jacob Lane. Gerald Childress. Catherine Coffey. Joe Stainby. And participating from Carolina King George counties, Kathy Bender. David Sullins.
Online.
It's on online. Jeffrey Black, Nancy Long. That concludes it.
Thanks.
Okay, so who was online?
David Sullins from the King George County.
Oh, great.
We
Okay.
did get, Madam Chair, I think you've seen apologies from Ms. Binder from King George as well, and she sent a submission. I don't you want me to read it later?
I would say that we should go ahead and read it now, and then we'll approve the subcommittee minutes. And this letter that Ian is going to read, this email came in this afternoon at 4:22. It was sent to me, Ian, and Chip Boyle. So please go ahead.
Sure. This is from Kathy Binder. It says, "Good afternoon. I'm sorry I cannot attend tonight's meeting in person due to other county commitments. Please read the following statement concerning a possible RTA. King George County leaders are concerned with any extra taxes incumbent on our citizens, especially in tough economic times. At this time, our county does not have an up-to-date study that could be applied to smart-scale funding, so the majority of any money and projects would not be in our locality. The residents would be footing the bill for projects out of our jurisdiction. Currently, King George also does not hold a voting seat on FAMPO, and that would have to be rectified if the county was forced into an RTA by lawmakers in the State House. Whatever the outcome, there needs to be an option to opt out if the RTA is passed in Richmond. Thank you for your consideration, PR."
Okay. All right, I will ask Mr. Sully, since he's online from King George. Mr. Sully, do you have anything that you would like to add to that letter that came from Kathy Bender with King George?
Hi, thanks for the opportunity. Actually, I don't have anything to add. I think Kathy summed it up pretty well.
Okay, wonderful. Thank you. I just wanted to give you that opportunity if you wanted to say something. I appreciate it. Okay, then item number 3, approval of the subcommittee minutes. We have the January 29th, the February 29th, and the March 21st meeting minutes. We did not have a meeting in April. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Okay, I have a motion and a second. Any discussion?
Well, abstain.
Okay, for those that were not present. Okay, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions besides Dr. Young? Okay, motion carries. Okay, Ian, questions received from policy committee members.
Thank you, Chairperson. We only got at the last meeting one question, which we've hopefully got the wording right. Please prepare a presentation showing the funding possible per project at each of the 3 percentage splits for approximately one project per jurisdiction using the 50-50, 60-40, 70-30. What match can we expect to receive? We only have one presentation for you tonight, and that tries to answer that question with some details. And John and I are going to share this with you together. We'll do it as quickly as we can, and then you can be free to deliberate on our closing suggestion for you. Actually, we'll take it with. So, Connor, if you pull up the presentation, and John and I will go through. So, I'm up first. So, next slide. So today we'll present the final set of presentations for the subcommittee. It is anticipated that members are discussing these matters with their colleagues in the jurisdictions, right? So that's not something we have got to do. It's up to you to carry on discussing. We'll look to the May subcommittee today to make a recommendation of a potential future RTA, whatever that recommendation might be, even if it's no, don't do this ever, that's a recommendation. It is intended that the June Policy Committee meeting will make a recommendation to the members of the General Assembly from our region as necessary. Again, in your guys' hands, it's not in our hands as staff. Next slide. You see how the train makes the screen vibrate?
I thought something was wrong with my eyes for a second. It was
No, the train going by, the train going by, it's through the ground vibrates the damn screen. We'll present slides explaining how the annual funding raised for the first 5 or 6 years could potentially be allocated to projects. There's not a finite list, but it's just trying to answer the question that was put to us. You know, if you swap out the projects, but the total cash stays the same, then it will have the same effect, whatever the project is. We also have actual sales tax income that we measured against the model we have been using on the following 2 slides. That needs a little bit of explanation, so we'll turn over the next slide and we'll show you. Frankly, I must acknowledge Tim Barudi from the City of Fredericksburg, who pointed out to us that the numbers we were showing in the projection based on the University of Mary Washington model for this year are off. Right, so we've been using the UMW model to show you what projected approximate figures could be as income from sales tax, from gas tax, from that all over these months that we've been doing it. So the tables we shared 3 months ago, he pointed out that the numbers are quite low. So what we've done for you, John has spent hours and hours and hours of his life stressing over this. So we thank him enormously. That we've gone and using the UMW model was initially based on the 2017 tax figures that the Census Bureau put out. And the UMW model projected from the 2017 tax numbers based on a per person per capita rate of taxes coming in, which for the retail tax, certain outcome, which we've been showing you, we had to split that on a per capita basis per jurisdiction. And that's when Tim Barudi said to us, it's a bit low. So what John did is, and he'll explain if needed, he's taken the 2023 actual tax receipts. He went to all of your jurisdictions and said, how much retail tax came in that check that you received from the state in 2023. And we got that exact number. So we used an exact 2023 retail sales tax, and then we were able to work that back so that the model is more accurate. Red line there is using the University of Mary Washington model and the 2023 actual tax receipts. And that gives you a projected line into the future to 2030 to give, because we have to estimate. Nobody knows how much sales tax is going to be paid in 2030. So we have to estimate. That's the model estimating. However, what we also did is we took the actual tax dollar amounts that we got from all the jurisdictions, I must say, except King George, because King George doesn't publish them separately. All the rest of the jurisdictions do. So unfortunately, this does not include King George. We can't find their number, and we've had to cut it off because there's no more time to look. But we've taken your actual tax receipts and added them up and displayed them there, and then we projected that trend line into the future. However, we have to point out that that tax receipt for retail tax was unusual during COVID. There was a bump. And therefore, John feels strongly that this projected line is a little bit too high, right? Because there's been a bump. So this is the UMW model based on 2023 actual receipts, dollar receipts. And that's a trend line based on all of these actual receipts. So in reality, our best guess, because that is what a projection is, it's a best guess based on the past, is that the reality is going to be somewhere in between those two lines. And we need to just tell you that because it's not an exact science predicting the future, believe it or not. And we try with these models to predict the future, but there's some variability in the difference between reality and the projection. So somewhere in there, and the same thing will happen in your jurisdiction, somewhere between those lines, it will be the reality of the projected retail tax based on, is it 1% in here? That's 1% retail sales tax, what it would look like, what that would bring in. It's approximate. It's even more complicated. I'm not going to get into the details because we don't need to for this exercise, but it's complicated because the model UMW used based on published census retail figures for your jurisdictions. And we've got the actual retail taxes from your jurisdictions. And guess what? Neither of them tells us whether the little differences between retail taxes on hygiene products, food, and the other retail taxes, whether they're all included or only some of them are included. And we've asked all of your jurisdictions to tell us what's included in a check, and none of them have got a breakdown. So we actually don't know if everything is included or most of them are included, or what, right? All we know is the dollar value. So we don't want you to get too hung up on the exact dollar values. These are projections based on the best information we have available. The ones we're giving you tonight are updated because we now have the actual dollar amounts for 2023, which we didn't have when we started this process. Somewhere in there is the actual amount you could get for 1% sales tax. Somewhere in there, between the red and the blue lines, will be the reality. So just don't quote the exact dollar value. These are projections. That's all that we're trying to say with this. And the city is correct. The initial UMW model, which we put in the 2017 per capita rate and then extended, didn't work very well when we broke it up per jurisdiction. I don't think the model was designed to be to have the figures broken up per jurisdiction. It looked at the region as a total. So it wasn't great. Next slide. In front of you are 3 sheets of paper. This is one of them. What we've done now is taken that red line and revised the numbers we gave you 3 months ago to the red line, because it will be a little bit more accurate. So you've seen these pages before. We've just updated the numbers. Works exactly the same as the ones we gave you last time. It's just showing slightly higher tax receipts. In some cases, quite a bit higher. And that's the only difference. You've got these sheets at home somewhere because we gave them to you last time. But those were based on 2017 figures published by the Census Bureau. These are the same categories, but based on your 2023 actual tax receipts. Is that clear to everybody?
Mm-hmm.
Just updating the information so that you don't have out of date numbers. So
All right, questions
a little-
for Ian? And
Gonna-
John,
I'm going to hand over to John in a minute.
Okay, Dr. Young?
Yeah, my quick question is, when you mentioned that you had the 2017 data that you stated that was not correct, and did you update that for the region yet? So instead of 2017, this is broken out, so I don't.
So
Right.
these,
Talking about the region,
yes, so that
2017 future, did you update that from 2023 to the future?
yes, that's in here.
This is
That's what these tables are. And if you look,
broken out.
if you look in the last, no, it's not in the last column. Yeah, where's that difference there? So if you look at the difference here, that shows you the difference between running the model with 2017 figures and running the model with the 2023 figures. The difference in every row, in every case is listed there, so you can see how the model was under predicting.
So remember when you said.
We don't have that column.
We don't have that.
You do have it on your email.
Yeah.
Oh,
So
correct.
you remember when you mentioned those,
So I'll ask John tomorrow morning to just send the 3 with that column again. You've got it on the email, but we'll send it out again tomorrow so that you have it. But the difference is in that column, and it's, sorry, just not on the printed sheets in front of you, but we'll send that to you. The point is,
Let me go back to Dr. Young, please. Go ahead.
so when you earlier you stated that The model, the Mary Washington model was not conducive when you broke it out. This
Yes.
is broken out.
Yes,
Right.
we didn't change the method. What we did was we
So
changed the
we can
inputs.
Assume that this is now correct or incorrect, because this is based off of the same UMW model.
Correct.
This has all your counties' published budget, actual retail sales tax incomes applied through this, and we went back all the way to 2017 to kind of track
Okay,
the differences. We saw it starting to skew differently, particularly during COVID, because what the UMW model does, it tries to predict retail growth based on population growth. And so it struggled when you say have a jurisdiction like Fredericksburg that had a lower growth in population, but actually had a significant increase in retail sales and tax. And we started seeing that across a couple of counties where your retail sales tax was actually growing faster than the population.
so how did you adjust the model to correct the issue?
So what the model was doing to be able to do out years, it was taking the per capita retail sales, so how much retail sales volumes per individual. And what the model now is, it assumed that, I want to say, for Fredericksburg, because I know this number because it's the biggest jump, previously it assumed that per person we increase into the future, the city would get about $34,000 in retail sales tax. Now that's closer to $50,000. For Stafford, it was about 17, and actually dropped a little bit to about $15,000, mostly because the population growth actually, that's one of the examples where it's can actually grow faster. Spotsylvania increased very, very little, I think about $1,000 increase. In Caroline County, I think increased by $27 as a whole. So for the most part, we saw that depending on the jurisdiction, the model was assuming different per capita rates based on their growth, and the model being projected 2017 to 2024 with the population growth that was matching retail sales. So
We'll answer any questions. I just don't want us to get very bogged down in the detail, because basically the message to you all is these are projections. We've tried to improve the projections tonight just so that you have a number that is closer to the actual end of 2023 checks that we know from your jurisdictions. So we've just updated the numbers to be accurate.
So the
But
answer to Dr. Young's question would have been yes. Correct?
Yes,
Okay,
it's better now.
Thank
because
you.
We've used actual tax receipts that are now available for 2023.
yeah.
Next slide.
Could I,
Okay, I have a couple other questions.
I just wanted to, I'm writing down the difference for Stafford in those columns. I just wanted to see it real quick. Changed.
Take a picture.
I'll ask one of the staff to go and print you a copy now.
It's fine, I've got it. I
Okay,
just have one more. Thank you.
but it was off by those amounts and the city picked it up, right? So we just went to do the latest figures based on the actual receipts, which give better predictions for the future. Next slide.
Yeah.
Okay, so back to the actual question. That's just a preface, right? Back to the actual question. Prepare to show us, could we afford these projects, and by when, and how much money would we need to afford funding those projects, and how much should we fund them? John did a lot of work on it. I'm going to leave you to carry on.
So to start off, to identify the projects and how much money we needed, we pulled data from the Central Virginia Transportation Authority, looked at, they had published their 64 projects and the money that they were allocating to various ones. We kind of went through this and tried to identify similar projects. So we have a bridge replacement, a bridge project, we have interstate widening, we have interchanges going in, and a couple other similar projects to identify how much money are they putting on. And we actually noticed that, generally speaking, it kind of varies. Sometimes with some smaller projects, they funded much more of it, but as the projects got larger, they actually funded a little bit less. And towards the end of it, the average work, they put in about a quarter of the money of what they would consider the total cost of the project, and that was over a 6-year span. So from that, we took our 6 projects, and Connor and I kind of worked and had some discussion that was like, realistically, we'll probably put a third. It's a little bit higher than their quarter, but because they kind of adjust it a couple of different ways, we kind of erred that say, okay, if we take a third of the money needed for each one of these 6 projects, then that should give us a good baseline for identifying how much revenue we would have to bring in per year to support that amount. And it turns out to be a little bit over $30 million.
Okay, hang on one second,
Yes.
John, if you will.
Yes.
Okay, Dr.
Sorry,
Young.
Oh, no.
No.
Okay, can you go back to the? Yes, this one.
Mhm.
So I was looking at that 89.2% last night, and the next page is good. It comes up to 100%. So is this just because it's samples that you just pulled from wherever?
Yes.
Yeah, we pulled similar projects from the CBTAs, tried to match them to our 6 projects and other projects we talked about.
Gotcha. Okay, so then when it comes to that I-64 widening in Rico, New Kent,
Mhm.
I know New Kent has an agreement, for example, with Buc-ee's, where they're giving Buc-ee's $1 billion, and Buc-ee's is gonna be holding until this I-64 widening is complete. Who is paying for this I-64? It's on this CBTA. Does that mean that Henrico and New Kent is paying for that road widening
the
for,
Their Transportation Authority has put in $100 million to that project.
and that $100 million came out of
The
the
RTA,
the RTA where all these other,
correct.
Correct.
and so do they know, well, you can't answer that question, I guess I have to talk to New Kent about that. If everybody knows that that's where that money is going.
Well, they've published that, we got this off their published website, so these are published figures.
Gotcha.
Just like we do our CMAQ and STBG, they basically have a similar spreadsheet process that they publish for these figures.
But we're currently handing out in CMAQ and SDG 6 million,
Yeah, I'm just crossing off the
They're-
questions.
they're at, hundreds of millions of dollars.
Okay, any other questions at this point? Any other questions? Okay.
Right.
So we took these road projects in this percentage, we took a third of how much this was going to be our match cost, how much would we need. We also looked at how we would program it out. Again, this is almost how we hand out CMAQ STBG. We look at the future years and say, how much money do we have available and how quickly can we build out projects, keeping within that budget. And we kind of saw that it was about 3 years to build out even some of our more expensive projects, but we could also do that in tandem with some of our relatively smaller projects as well. So that was the amount that was identified in the scheduling for it. And so we developed the revenue options. With the retail sales tax, we actually started considering, okay, what happens if we use a 1/2 cent, if we only use a 2/5 or a 4/10 cent, or even a 1/3 cent tax? Would that get us there? In our initial using kind of the previous 2017 modeling data, the first time we ran this, a lot of the projects were having, or the category that was having the most impact is what you do with the $15 million. If you split up by population, it would give you one thing. A lot more options kind of emerge if you put it all into the regional pot. That was just something that staff noticed. We considered that as an option. And then we also added in transit occupancy and recordation tax. Most of the time, those don't really matter, except for a few edge cases where all of a sudden having those tax actually does. And we're keeping with our FAMPO model. So we're taking the more conservative so that we know that we have a baseline to meet that $30 million area. So on a whole, when we ran the scenarios, the 50-50 option generally did not make up enough regional revenue to fund the regional projects, unless in a few cases we direct the 15 million only into retail sales. So 50-50 would need that 15 million allocations to go back into the regional pot to make that a viable option. 60-40, you started having a lot more options to populate. You could actually do different mixed sources at the 4/10 or the 1/2 cent sales tax. You could actually have a few of those, and then putting the 15 million into the regional pot again made more options. And then generally the 70-30 options made most cases viable for either of those taxes. And you even started having the 1/3 cents option become feasible of meeting that $30 million item. And so see here with the 1/3 cents,
Just stop 1 second. Go back to that previous slide. This is the summary of what you're going to see on those very detailed slides at the bottom. So if I used to be a politician, if your eyes glaze over at those next 3 slides, don't panic. This is the summary of what they're going to tell you. This is just the numbers to justify this executive summary. We first built the pages you're going to see now. And then I said to John, hey, we need to make it simpler so that people online know what we're talking about. This is the simpler executive summary of what the next 3 pages tell you. It's the same information, just organized in a phrasing.
Thank you.
So the third cents, only the $15 million in the 3rd cent or 4/10 cent become option. They require the $15 million going into the regional pot. You do start having the 70-30 become available. They start generating just over $30 million with a 70-30 split. At the 4/10 option, again, 50-50 only works in very specific situations. At the 60-40, you actually do have this option just barely reaching the $185,000 needed. It's right at that, but it meets it. And then basically all options become available at the 70-30 split. And you see the same kind of pattern at the half-cent tax. Again, 50-50 does not quite get there. We're starting to get kind of close, but we're still about $2 million, $1.5 million short. The 60-40 becomes viable across all options, and the 70-30 remains viable. And you start actually getting close to being able to get about a 45% match.
At a half a cent.
And a half a cent.
So there's a relationship here between how small the retail tax component is of the mix as to whether or not you need to use the $15 million state allocation completely in the pot for the regional options.
Yes.
So so 3 things are happening. It's whether you have half cent, 0.004, 4/10, or 0.003, right? That's the one thing changing. And then whether you have 50-50, 60-40, or 70-30, those 2 numbers, whatever you pick there, determines how much of the 15 million you have to also throw in the regional pot. The more of the split you give to the region, the less of the 15 million you have to give to the region. You can use it for locality projects. And the same with how many cents in the dollar you charge as a retail tax affects how much of the 15 million you have to put in the regional pot or keep in the localities pot. In order to fund at 1/3 the cost of the project. Any one of those 4 things you can change. But when you change the one, changes the other 3 automatically. And these tables that John showed you help you to decide what you're comfortable with, but each decision you make then affects the other one next door. Just for Carolina King George, we haven't messed with the gas tax because the suggestion was that for King George and Caroline, the gas tax would effectively be a pass-through, right? They already pay it, it's not a new tax, but they don't see the benefit of it unless they get funded through Smart Scale. It's the only way you can get some of that money back currently, as far as I know. In Stafford, Fredericksburg, and Spotsylvania, the gas tax in your jurisdiction goes, first of all, to fund VRE. And then whatever's left over, the jurisdictions are able to use for other projects. So this gas tax is charged in every jurisdiction in Virginia, but we're making this as an option available to Carolina King George. It's frankly a better way of getting back their gas tax, because the Smart Scale process, it depends if your project scores high enough, if you're going to get the gas tax money back in the form of the Smart Scale funding. If your project doesn't score highly enough, you get 0 of your gas tax back.
Okay, Mr. Kinnaman and then Mr. Graham.
The assumption is that can you try to tell me this 15 million state allocation, where is that coming from again?
So this was proposed in the last version of the RTA bill that was submitted via the Senate in the General Assembly. And it was suggested that this could be a proxy for your grantors tax, which was redistributed by the General Assembly to Hampton Roads. So the grantors tax that is taxed right now in your jurisdictions has been redirected to Hampton Roads. You can't get it back unless the General Assembly has a vote to take it back from them and give it back to you, right? So the last version of the RTA bill that was presented said, in lieu of that, it's not going to be that money. It's going to be other tax money from that pot. But the General Assembly is going to give it to you because they took your other money previously.
Understood.
All right, Mr. Graham.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So I'm afraid there is a problem on these sheets with the math.
There may be, tell us.
The retail tax, if you, so let's, everyone wants to go to the 70-30 page. Sorry. If you look at the retail tax column, the numbers don't add up to the municipal authority total.
Oh, they're not supposed to.
Thank you for explaining that to me, because I'm like, I know I'm missing something.
I sat with a calculator and then I went to John and I was like,
I want to be wrong. I really want to be wrong on this.
you are wrong.
Thank you. Made my day.
This past week, if you play football, I've been seeing ghosts through all these spreadsheets.
So I've driven him mad, if you really want the truth. I called him on Friday and I was like, something doesn't add up here. And he spent the whole weekend stressing and I'm now feeling terribly bad that I wrecked his weekend.
Okay.
Think about this now. It's simple to explain because I worked this out all on my own, actually. They're not supposed to be the same unless you're in the 50-50 category, because in the 50-50 category, the amount going to the region must be exactly the same as the total going to all of the jurisdictions because it's a 50-50 split. When you're in a 70-30 split, it's not supposed to add up. It's should be much higher, the one going to the region as there you go.
Yes, okay, thank you. I'm really.
We have sweated over these, I tell you.
That's,
I'm gonna lay down for a bit now.
If we tell you how many formulas are in these things behind the scenes and the CMAC STGB maps, how many formulas are there, it gives me, we're very glad to not have to do this again after tonight.
fair enough.
Heavy lift.
Mr. Miller.
For the slow people in this chair right here. So what does the 70-30 add up? Where's that? Like, I know it doesn't add up here, but
So the 70-30 add up to the total taxes that are being levied.
right,
So if you want to explain it?
yeah.
So, the 70-30, approximately, 30% goes to back to the localities. And then the other 70. So we actually projected, like, if you go actually further back, sorry. We're basically trying to get through this line and then it's divided through. Note that this doesn't actually include yours because they didn't have the data for this particular line. But basically the third 30% goes there, then the rest of it goes to our authority based on, yes.
You're right. However, this is only showing you the retail portion.
Yeah, that's true.
So that table at the beginning, which shows you retail, grantors tax, et cetera, the first table, that shows you where the money should come from if you want to go with all of those taxes. And those sheets showing you where the money is going to. So those two must add up. And they do. So go back to the total tax sheet with the transient and all that. Yeah, you see? Here's the 15 million state allocation. Remember, it's 50-50, so 7.5 is half of 15.
Yeah.
Here's the transit occupancy per jurisdiction. Here's the recordation tax. Here's the retail tax. Here's the fuel tax we've only applied in Carolina King George, and we've not included it in the figures because, as we said, it's a pass-through because the other jurisdictions use their money with BRE and so on.
Right.
So that's where is the money coming from? Here, whichever squares you pick. And where is it going to? Here. This is what you're going to do with.
So Ian, if you look at the other RTAs that have been developed in the state, how many of them, Ian and John,
It does.
actually use all of these different taxes? Because I know not all of them have every tax,
Correct.
their RTA, but I think some of them have more than one.
Correct.
I'm
So
forgetting which ones.
So They all have retail sales tax, gas tax.
Not all.
Well, there's
Northern Virginia is different, like us.
Northern Virginia is like us. They use their gas tax to fund all of those things you know about. Commuter
Right.
services. So they like us, they get the gas tax, but they hand it over to fund Vermont,
And everything else.
and all the other
Right.
commuter things, right?
Yeah.
But generally, they have the things that bring in much of the money, frankly, are number one, retail sales tax, number two, retail sales tax, number three, retail sales tax.
Number 3 is fuel tax.
The gas tax is the next biggest, but in our region, for the FAMPO localities, it's already spoken for.
Correct.
Unless you want to make it really high, but we don't think that's a good idea. It's spoken for. So we've left it out. That's why there are all those zeros.
So the reason I asked that question, because I think through a process of elimination, let's talk about the transit occupancy. Since our last meeting, we've all approved our budget.
Yes.
And, we increased our TOT from 7% to 9%. So I don't think there would be any benefit for any of us in this region when we're trying to bring tourism dollars here to look at increasing our TOT, but that's just my humble opinion.
Understood. I'm not overly stressed by that because if you look at these tables, it doesn't bring much money in for us.
Correct. So
But we could
why do we,
drop that.
so would there be a consensus to kind of eliminate that one?
It strikes me that as long as we're all moving together, I don't think it doesn't strike me as a problem.
I would echo that, and the way I'm thinking about this is, all right, so we've gone from 7 to 9 there, and all of the regions, I do believe in your budgets, you increased your transient occupancy tax. And, as we'll mention first, if we're all doing it together, you don't lose out on the free rider problem, or, game theory doesn't, rear its ugly head. The thing I'm thinking about too is, what does the marginal increase do? Does this marginal increase change? And I'm not at another percentage point would then discourage people to go somewhere else or spend their tourism dollars elsewhere as opposed to this region. That's the decision that I'm looking at. And so yes, it's an insignificant amount of money relative to the retail sales tax, without a doubt, but I don't know if that's enough of a reason to drop it, only because I'm not sure that we're dealing with that same degree of what do they call it? The rest of the term escapes me right now, doesn't really matter. But the point is that decision I don't think is going to be made with that kind of calculus in mind.
Chairperson?
Yes,
I don't think I agree with you. I don't think anybody's on their phone looking what the transient occupancy tax is.
Right.
As to where they're gonna stay, right?
Yeah.
I mean, at the same time, we don't want it to be cost prohibitive, but I agree, it's not that big of a deal. But I don't want to raise it, but I agree.
yes.
And and also the reason I'm a little hesitant with that is that, if we're talking about transportation infrastructure, the visitors to our region are obviously beneficiaries of that transportation infrastructure. And I don't want to design a tax model that puts the entire financial burden for improving our transportation infrastructure on our residents. I would like the visitors to our region to help carry some of that burden. That's why I'm less enthusiastic. Those are people who are using our transportation. I take to see.
I find.
Dr. Young?
Sure, yeah. I'm confused. We just heard that King George is not gonna be part of this RTA, but I was in one of the meetings where I thought I heard Spotsylvania is not gonna be part of this RTA. But yet we are showing all these numbers with both in here. And then now we're talking about TOT excluding, including, that's less money. So who's in and who's out? Chair.
Yes.
So Spotsylvania does not want to be part of this RTA right now. And my other colleagues can speak to this as well, as a group, as it stands.
Yeah.
No, we don't. We are here because in good faith, we are talking.
Yeah.
And, we're participating. But no, we've talked about it as a group and no, we don't. Now, one of the things that, I thought we could do, Chris and Drew and I, is to take this back and to say, okay, here's all of the data.
Right.
So that everybody is fully informed, because I think we've tried to keep everybody informed, right, guys?
Yes.
But they haven't seen things like this.
So I preface my comment to ask the question.
Yeah.
Thank you for explaining that. I know I've come to some of the meetings and I don't think we had a work session, correct me if I'm wrong.
No.
Take everything back and have a work session to discuss all of this with or without King George's, Spotsylvania, because I think these numbers would change as to how much money different localities need to put in.
Yes,
Am I
so the
correct on that?
two things would change if a locality doesn't want to be in, which is what we kind of expect, right? The income column for that locality would go, but so would the projects for that locality go, right? And so it kind of keeps pace. So we can show you, for example, if only 2 localities want to, we've got hidden behind there. We didn't put it in the pack, but we can show you some more numbers. But it basically is kind of a balanced system where you pull out from being taxed, that you don't get funding for your project or projects or whatever. It's so we can redo the numbers a million times based on who wants to be in, wants to be out. May I just, Chairperson, just
Sure.
really-
Let me get to Supervisor Gary's question and then you
Okay.
can speak.
Yeah, I'll be quick. I just wanted to comment to that for clarity of the whole thing, because I know you've been in and out, Dr. Young. This is something that the state has done in the past and brought legislation forward to go through, and the discussion started around, if this is going to happen, what will we prefer for it to look like? So if a locality is included or not is really up to the state at that point. So it's not something that we actually decide here, but we're just all trying to figure out, if this happens, what would be the best for all of us.
I've been in those conversations.
Oh,
so
okay. I just
I'm
wanted
up
to be
date with
clear
it.
that
Yeah.
that's like the ultimate
Gotcha.
decider of who's in or out.
Right. Okay. Dr. Schneider, and then I'll come back to Ms. Hayes.
Very comment. One thing that I've seen in other communities, but if you get rolled into it, you can always put a credit against your residents for the taxes collected in. So for example, you're funding transportation projects in Spotsylvania County. If you get rolled in and there's a collection of 2.3 million, you're probably spending more than 2.3 million. You can then, out of your budget line item, reallocate those funds. You give credit back to your citizens. If you're not in, you don't get the chance to make that decision. So just a perspective to.
So, yeah.
Okay.
So,
sure.
I'm gonna just say this again. The legislators work for us, not us
I
for
agree.
them.
Mhm.
And this is what I wanted to have happen, and I talked to Ian before about this. If we don't have, and I thought that we discussed that it is imperative that all of the localities participate. Otherwise, if you have 3 localities, you can have 2 gang up against one, or, whatever. Everybody has the best intentions here. Believe me, I know, but it can happen. And so if everybody's gonna be in, that's the best scenario. If there's not gonna be everybody in, then I think as a group, we can go to our legislators and tell them, like we did before, please do not do this. Do not do this. Spend your time working on something else. I don't know why anybody would want to do this unless they're told to do it. You all have better things to do, I'm sure.
So the only thing that I want to say is that I'm glad that we've had these meetings. I think they've been very productive. From our board standpoint, we have recently had 2 work sessions, and we have more material for our work sessions than we can get accomplished. I mean, we could have 2 work sessions every week for everything we have going on in the county. And the rest of our board, except for those that have come and participated here, we have 2 members that have not seen any of this material. So, I mean, our board needs to have a work session on this, but we have not had an opportunity to do that yet. So, I would just like to say that I can't sit here, nor can any of my colleagues sitting around this table and say, well, we're ready to gung ho to move forward with this, because I don't know where people are gonna have to look at these numbers and understand, you know, the whole enchilada before they're ready to move forward. And we have to take a vote on it, or at least have some kind of an indication from the board members. So, you know, that's something that we're gonna be doing in the next 6 weeks. And we only have 2 more meetings until our July break. So I just wanted to mention that.
Madam Chair.
Yeah, Supervisor Gary and then Supervisor.
I think you raised your hand first, Cody.
Oh, okay.
So our previous meeting, just the last one, we had a discussion about that and FAMPO staff coming and working with them, doing a presentation even to our
Sure.
boards that was supposed to follow up this meeting, is my understanding. So that's still
Happy to present.
something
If
we're planning on doing.
you need us to explain the numbers or anything, we're here. You just tell me and I'll come
Yep.
up, and
We have to make that happen. Yep.
Okay, thank you.
we don't invite ourselves to your boards. We wait to be asked. So I just want to show you,
Hang on.
Wait, I think this is premature. All right, this is way premature. You're asking, what are we gonna name it? What's the board makeup? What's the voting rights? What the funding split is? It's premature. We need to be able to come back and say, we're in or we're out. And then those people that are in, that's where this comes in.
absolutely. Can I just talk to this quickly? It'll take me 2 minutes and then I'll.
Okay, and then I'll come back to Jason.
So I did this afternoon, and I'm attempting to give you something that you are able to take forward, because clearly we've heard, while not every jurisdiction has taken a vote or made a decision, we've heard people come to these meetings and say, we think we're going to be out, or we're thinking maybe we'll be in, or maybe in one case, we like this idea. So all that this is trying to give you a vehicle to encapsulate what everybody feels. And some people are like, we're in, and some people are, we're out. But if we're in, there's got to be conditions. It's not just we're in and do what you like. It's we're in, but we want to tell you some of these things. So all of this is, and I'm not asking you to fill it all in tonight. I'm just trying to give you a framework that you can think about as an option. And you might not even like this framework, right? You might say, no, we only want to have those who want to be in to be on the memo that we eventually produce. This one just says, some localities want to be in and these are those. Some localities want to be out and these are those. They may opt in future to change their mind. But you can try to craft a proposal that gives people an opt-in. The letter from our colleague in King George asked for an opt-out, which I hadn't seen when I drafted this, but my proposal was to give you an opt-in, not an opt-out, where you actually have to say, yes, we want to be in the first round, or no, we don't want to be in, but we would like to not be blocked forever the next 1,000 years from joining. Maybe there'll come a time in the future where we will want to join. So it'll just provide a vehicle that you can say, okay, we want to exercise the option in 5 years' time to join the thing because we think it's working well. That's all that this is. You don't have to sign anything tonight. I'm not asking you to vote. This is just a suggested framework to think about, because it gives options that, I mean, if we filled in all the names from what the jurisdiction decided, you'd be able to, in good conscience, vote for a thing like this, because it says, I don't want to be in writing, right? And the whole purpose of the process was to give the people in Richmond, this is what we feel, a summary of what we feel. So please don't do whatever you want. Think about what we want, and here's what we want.
Okay,
I'm done.
Jason?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'd like to respectfully disagree with my friend from Spotsylvania. And referencing the minutes from the March meeting, is that this meeting, we had discussed actually this meeting to be quite literally the time where we make these decisions.
And that's why I didn't want to have this meeting.
I understand, but it is what we had, as a.
And I asked for that.
I recognize that, and I believe that unfortunately your.
Majority
your output-
rules.
Correct.
Yep,
So
okay.
I did just want to point that out,
I
that
understand.
this is the purpose that we're here to do. And for those who don't want to be a part of it, again, totally respect that, don't want to, impose that. So for for tonight, and the name of the authority, board makeup, and the split percentage and the sources, Madam Chair, if I may, would it be appropriate to simply begin with 7A and just to go down to, so we can try to knock these out as methodically, at least as possible, and try to get us out of here before 10 o'clock?
Okay, what's the,
Not me, I didn't say that. I said 3 hours.
No.
I'm trying to.
okay, what's the will of the committee? We know
Madam
how,
Chair.
yes,
I mean, honestly, if we're out, then we
okay,
don't have any say in this.
all right. Will,
I was just gonna agree with Councilor Graham, right, that, you know, if for those that want to be at the table, don't want to be at the table, then you don't have to. I don't, yeah. But for those of us that do want to be at the table, I don't want to have our progress stopped by those who don't.
Madam Chair,
yes,
I would just very respectfully ask that if you all move forward with this, that you make it very clear to the legislators that it is your jurisdiction only,
Absolutely.
and that you are not speaking for any other jurisdiction.
Board makeup will say specifically the
And-
jurisdictions in, and specifically the ones who are out is what I would.
And I would like, as a FAMPO members, right, to be informed of any discussions with legislators and what they're leaning towards. And the other question I have, and I apologize for going late on this, but how much money is it gonna cost to run this?
Okay, so we did sort of cover this. Do you remember the CEO of the Northern Virginia
Yep,
Transportation
yep, I
Authority?
do.
She put figures up there, and she showed in her presentation, which I think you'll have, that the current operational costs is less than the interest they're receiving on the money they've got invested that's going into projects.
Okay.
So they're actually just using the interest to run the running costs.
Okay,
And the other thing I recall saying previously is that in Richmond, they have a smaller authority, and we're going to be smaller still. And they only have one staff member, and they share the office with their GWRC. So
Okay.
they share the office space, and they only have one staff member.
Okay.
So their annual cost is quite low, and the interest while you're getting your project ready will way cover any operational
Okay.
costs. So it will be
Thank you
very
for that
small,
information.
but just for.
yeah, but I think, you know, if we can compare ourselves to Northern Virginia, because the interest that they're making on their pool of funds is phenomenal
Correct.
compared to anything out of Central Virginia.
But Richmond only has one staff member. And
Correct.
I thought, yeah, you would hire a bunch of staff.
I would like to, if I may, Madam, if you ask about the interest,
So it'd be shared.
even if you look at a scenario in which we're only looking at 1% of that is $200,000.
Correct.
So I still think even if with a smaller number of localities, we would still be able to cover that cost for a single staff,
You don't need a
even
big,
being smaller.
you don't
Right.
need a big operation unless you want to, right? You really don't need a big, you need to administer the funds, have it, have them audited. You need to have proper accounts kept. You need to have somebody to organize the meetings and all that, and they have one person in Richmond, one person.
Madam Chair, just for whatever
Yes.
it's worth,
Mr. Boyles,
our going rate interest return right now is 5.4% annualized.
okay,
So, to get an idea
That's
based on.
good. Just the other thing is this group doesn't have decision-making authority. I'm just keeping you to the rules.
Yep.
This is a subcommittee of the policy committee. The purpose of this group, in terms of our rules, trying to get all the cards on the table and exclude things that we don't want to do and start to talk about the things that we do want to do and make recommendations then to the policy committee that you're on. So only the policy committee can actually write a letter or make a document or whatever, and you will be there and all of your colleagues. So there's nothing that can be decided by this group. This group merely deliberates, comes to some sort of consensus that we can maybe move forward with. And then it's got to go back to the policy committee for any voting, for any correspondence, for anything. You
I
can't,
understand.
you can't do anything.
I just want to make sure that it's clear.
Right,
That's
okay.
Definitely. And there's a
Monica,
recording, we
Crystal,
record everything.
right.
So I have a question for my colleagues in Spotsylvania. I was thinking about this since our last meeting, specifically the traffic that's going to be generated for the Kalahari you have coming in, and I haven't looked at the specific location of that in detail, but regarding those traffic impacts, how much of that volume is coming through our localities, for example? I just wanted to share that thought, as something to consider, because whatever we do going forward with this may have an impact. I mean, well, it will, you know, we're all kind of connected. So looking at that, is that something that's relevant to this at all, even if we don't want it to be? Like, what does that look like?
Well, and in addition to that, and then I'll go to Drew, is the VA center. So Drew,
Well, I would say, yeah, you could probably, definitely project more volume to those destinations, but at the same time, where that's going to generate revenue, tax revenue that would be offsetting whatever the costs were to that. So if there was some sort of impact, then it should be.
So I guess my question is, like, regionally, how will it impact?
Are you talking
Because
about, like,
the
what it
revenue
can make
generated is
adjustment?
coming to you. But they'll be coming through, yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
other localities. So I mean, has that been considered in the context of this conversation about
Well,
an RTA?
I think I'm not going to speak for our transportation director and the staff, but they recognize that because of those things, because we do have uniqueness in that we have Kalahari and the surrounding tourist destination action and the VA. Those are sources of revenue that allow us to project, potentially offset transportation issues.
For you,
Well, that's right.
Right.
So that negates the idea for needing it as being dependent on an RTA.
but those people will also be traveling through our localities.
That's right, they
as
will. And
well.
those are state
So that's
roads.
just something
Those
that
are
I'm
state roads,
asking,
so.
if you haven't, well, yeah, of course they are. I'm not telling you, you need to do this because, I'm just asking if that's really been considered as, you know,
Yeah,
in the context of the regional collaboration for transportation.
I'm
which
sorry,
is
step
the-
on you.
No, you're
Yeah,
okay,
sure.
you're
I
okay.
think all of us have unique things, like you all have the baseball field, right? That people use Route 3
Mhm.
to get to the baseball field.
Sure.
If you guys, I know, but I'm just saying, that's gonna be huge. I won't say the word.
Well, I think that Fredericksburg obviously is considering those things and they want more of a regional collaboration. They understand that. And so I'm just asking if that's been done, if that's been discussed in depth enough. I mean, and that's for you all to decide, but I feel like it's a valid thing to consider for the rest of us as well.
Okay, just to answer,
Sure.
rest of that, Madam Chair. Yeah, I think that's a valid question, and we should probably maybe talk to our staff and transportation to see what they have to say and how they
Okay.
look at that
Okay.
to let you know better than I could
Mhm.
answer that question.
Jana.
I have a question and I want to make sure that I'm understanding all of this correctly. What I'm hearing you say,
Yeah.
I was gonna do this out because we're council, you know.
Say
Uh,
Drew's fine,
Drew.
yeah.
Honorable member.
Honorable member, that because you're going to have these Kalahari and the hospital, and that will generate money for you all to spend on roads. That you,
Good.
right? Or whatever you need, that you wouldn't need an RTA to pay for roads that you would, or transportation. Am I understanding that?
I'm not saying that,
That's what I
no.
heard too, so.
Okay,
I heard,
okay,
No, I'm saying that our staff has looked at
okay,
how they would leverage those kinds of revenue streams.
yes,
And they're confident that we have more options instead of needing to rely on an RTA to do things. We have revenue streams online coming.
to do like a match. So what I'm
So,
understanding
it
is that
seems-
the real benefit of an RTA is that we have a bigger pot of money. So that we can get more of the state funds.
Yep, match.
So,
right? So we have the match, but you're saying you'll have the match. Is that what I'm hearing?
I'm not saying that at all. I didn't use
Okay.
those words. What I'm saying is that
I'm just.
if there are,
just trying to-
as we're trying to, this is internal kind of dialogue, right?
Yeah,
So we're looking at ways to solve some of these problems with what we project coming. All these transportation issues,
mhm.
widening the southbound lanes to, well, 126, dealing with, the VBA, Harrison Road interchange, those. So we're looking at how we can solve those problems, which would alleviate downstream the congestion. It wouldn't be a bottleneck.
You're without, but, and so you can get those state funds?
Well,
with
we don't
your
know.
own-
We don't know.
You don't know. That's what I'm saying.
so,
That's.
so I think that, yeah, you're trying to understand why they wouldn't join here if they can maximize their tax dollars for their transportation projects. And they're saying, we feel like we can do it with other revenues that are gonna be generated from these projects and that we don't need the RTA. So I'll just say, from the larger localities perspective, okay? And I think this is fair to say this, when we look at the population of Stafford and Spotsylvania, and I don't know exactly where Spotsylvania is, but 160,000 or more, and you've got the population of the city at 30,000, right? People are sitting around the table. It's human nature to go, well, what's in this for me?
Absolutely.
Exactly.
Right?
Sure.
Okay. And I think that's the one thing that we haven't really talked about here. And this is a very hard concept for, first of all, people, human nature is, well, what am I going to get out of this? Right. And so it's very hard, especially for new board members that are sitting around the table going, okay, this is really about collaboration and the region. And to be honest, I don't know how I'm gonna vote on this yet. I haven't made a decision. I've still got more analysis that I personally need to do. And I look at the region, and I live in South Stafford, so I'm dealing with transportation all the time. But I think that's the thing is, are the other bigger localities putting more in and the city's not gonna be putting in more? And that you're getting the bigger bang for the buck. I'm just putting the facts out there. This is reality. Is it really gonna turn out that way? We don't know. Is it gonna help move traffic in the entire region? But then there are things that each of us could be doing, whether it's Kalahari, the VA, some big project in Stafford that we don't even know about right now, not the one that we do know about, okay? There could be something else. We're all gonna be doing projects out there that are gonna impact traffic. And those projects we don't even know about right now, right? So how do we make a decision that is best for the entire region? And how do we get those localities, whether it's Meg sitting here or any of us around the table, how do we get the buy-in from those localities with the information that we have in front of us right now? Where's the I need to hit the I believe button that this is gonna work and right.
Well, Madam Chair, I mean, I'm probably, well,
Yeah.
there's a couple of new people here and I just sit and I listen.
Sure.
I don't speak a lot and I don't hear a sense of regionalism in this room. I haven't heard it since I've come to these meetings. And so when you talk about buy-in, it seems like the mindset is negative and it's about all of the bad things that have happened in the past and, how this person's gonna hoard the money, that person's gonna hoard the money. And I'm thinking about, I believe it was one of the meetings where you spoke about all of the issues that we've had in the region for years and how, this supervisor, this council person sat here and they talked about this issue 10 years ago and we haven't fixed it. I don't see us solving that with the mindset that I've observed and things that I've heard just sitting and listening to everybody talk. And then, the other part, and I listened to our representatives, and I personally feel and think and believe that if we do not solve this, then we're going to have an RTA. I think that we were given an opportunity. If you've listened to what was said in this room when they spoke, they gave us an opportunity to do it. But I feel like if we do not, then in the coming years, it's probably going to be forced forced on us, depending on who's sitting in the governor's seat. So,
Okay, I'm gonna let Chris talk first because he hasn't said anything tonight, if that's okay.
Oh, that's fine with me, thank you. So a couple of things. One, Kalahari is not gonna give us that much money. We didn't, we gave a whole bunch to them. I was against it because it was a horrible deal. So, but I wish them well and I hope that they're successful and, as they're now part of our county. So the VA clinic, the county agreed to spend around $89 million of our own dollars currently, which we're already doing to improve transportation in the area for that. So it's not that an RTA wouldn't be successful, it's that Stafford County shouldn't have to pay for transportation improvements on Route 1 in front of Kalahari. That's not a regional project. This has been the problem with this whole thing from the beginning, in my opinion, is that we have not set out what we're trying to accomplish. It's dollars. It's, oh, look at, we can get a lot of money to do what? Stafford, you guys want to do projects? Go for it. I support everything you guys want to do, but it's not up to my taxpayers to pay for yours, just like it's not up to your taxpayers to pay for mine.
Is it up to?
Because, well, and this regional thing, what is regionalism? Regionalism is not getting, let's say Brock Road. We need to widen Brock Road. Anybody know where that is?
Yeah.
I do.
Okay, absolutely. Should we widen that and should you guys pay for that?
Yes.
How does that help the regional transportation project? Regionalism doesn't mean projects in the region. It means helping the region move our transportation issues. So until we come up with projects that will do that, all this is another piggy bank to dip into to then ask the state to match funds so that we can do these projects. Until we actually figure out that regionalism is so that we can work together better, we can move together better. And I hope, and I don't think a lot of people, Jason, you listened to it, you told me you did. I gave a talk at our board meeting a couple meetings ago, and I laid out 5, and I'll lay them out here because we've talked about them in the past. One is a connection in between Route 3 and 17 out in New Post. Now that to me is regionalism. That helps because that will help Lafayette, that'll help Route 1, that'll help the Blue Gray because it will give other connections. Another one is a connection in between Shannon Drive and in the city, you guys, Industrial Park. That was something we talked about years and years and years ago.
Airport, by the Shannon Airport.
No, off of Lansdowne Road.
So Dixon Street, it goes
Yeah.
from Dixon to Lansdowne.
Yeah, well,
Oh.
yeah, it would connect so that you wouldn't have to go down and around.
Oh, okay.
And that is a connection between 2 jurisdictions that actually will benefit the traffic patterns for both of us. That's what I'm saying. It can't be
Okay.
independent of another jurisdiction. And one of the things that the I-81 corridor has is they all work together on I-81.
Right,
The thing that Hampton Roads has is they work together on 64.
right.
So what we need to do is figure out what are those projects. Here's another one, the river crossing. And to the detriment of my fellow board members, I've been the only one who has been behind it because I see the benefit to those interconnecting projects that will help the region. So I think what we need to do is come up with those regional projects, and I know it's been shot down before, but I'm gonna throw it out again. Come up with those regional projects, then figure out how much it costs, and then put together the funding mechanism for it. This way, we're actually figuring out what we're trying to accomplish, not figuring out how much money we need to then figure out what we want to accomplish. And then
I think that makes a heck of a lot of sense. Why have you been so quiet?
said that like,
About 4 or 5 times.
I say that a lot, so, and I'm not.
Had their hands up next.
And-
Oh, wait, are you not finished?
Just one last thing,
Okay.
and I'm sorry, I don't mean to, and
No, that's
and I.
good. That's why we're here.
Well, you're not here to listen to me, but this much,
Higher reason.
and I'm here for the sarcasm. But the thing is, regionalism, I am very pro-regional, I really am. What I was trying to avoid is those spats that we get into because we didn't do it right to begin with. That was all that I was pointing out with that, because that is not helpful. I want to sit around this room and I want to work with you guys. Fredericksburg has issues, because you're not going anywhere. We're all neighbors.
Right.
But we need to make sure that the things that we do are mutually beneficial. And, you know, I will still be the one vote on my board, and no offense to you guys, vote however you like. But I will still vote for that because I believe it's right. But I just think if it's set
Let
up,
me ask you this. Let me ask your colleagues that are here.
and I'm not.
If we went with the approach that he's talking about with these projects that are to start with regional projects that are the ones that he referenced for you guys, would that change your minds?
Well,
Drew?
I was in the queue after.
Okay.
So anyway, so I'm gonna just circle back and answer your question. It's just so context. My primary concern is taxpayers. Okay, so 165,000 Spotsylvania taxpayers. That's first thing I ask. What's the impact? And then is it further away you get from whatever the proposal is? In this case, for me, the whole RTA is commingled or tainted by the current study for the river crossing. I have a hard time separating that because I know the current study for the river crossing isn't possible unless there's some sort of funding mechanism such as an RTA. So therefore, that taints or biases my ability to kind of look at it by itself. However, from the beginning, I've also said that, to your point, river crossings are necessary, something that goes out to the west or out to New Post or something like that. So I'm used to where I used to work, you frame the problem. What problem are we trying to solve? First, identify the problem, frame the questions, and then solve it. Instead, we're building this theoretical airplane and then, well, we hope we're going to get this much revenue from this many people flying on it. We'll look for customers after we build the RTA. That's where it gets clunky. Now, that's just a perception. Okay, I'm gonna speak for myself on that. I don't disagree with regional approach to anything, but I think you hit it on the head with how we've, as a county, have already kind of invested with the VA center and all that. So there's possibility for it, but again, rather than it be an RTA-driven solution, let's frame the problem and do the work on what that thing we want to solve is and find out if we even need an RTA or not. Is there another mechanism? So if you exhaust those efforts first, and you come to the intellectual conclusion that, hey, we don't have the ability between Stafford, Caroline, King George, and Spotsy to solve the river crossing by ourselves. So then we look at it. That's it. I'll get off.
That's a good point. Okay, Will?
I guess I just think that I'm struggling to understand the definition of who the people are working with here, because I'm looking at this list of potential projects that Mr. Hollis pulled together for us, right? And they're mostly not in the city, right? Some couple of them touch the city, but they're mostly not about enhancing transportation. But I see Supervisor Mullins every morning in the summer at Hazel Wild Farm on Harrison Road because my kids go to summer camp.
Yeah.
Right. So traffic in Spotsylvania County matters to me, and it matters to my constituents because they don't live their entire lives within the city of Fredericksburg, right? And we have lots of good friends out on Route 17 in Stafford, and so a river crossing would be super convenient, right? Because we go there, right? And so you asked Mr. Yakubowski, right? Should our taxpayers pay for that? And my answer is yeah, because my taxpayers drive to Spotsylvania and the quality of the transportation network in Spotsylvania matters to their quality of life, right? In the same way that your constituents come to the city, right? And sit in traffic on Route 1 at the Falmouth Bridge when 95 is backed up, right? Or some problem, right? And that, this notion that these infrastructure problems are our problems of the jurisdictions, it strikes me as fundamentally false, because I sit in traffic in Spotsylvania and Stafford way more than I sit in traffic in the city, right? I'm thinking about my own life, right? And so that's why, I think we as a city want to be at the table, right? Because I think it does matter to our constituents. And they don't want to sit in traffic. And God's honest truth, they mostly sit in traffic in the counties.
If I may just to add.
Okay, yep, Drew.
Just real briefly, 100% agree.
Yeah.
So we look very hard at how we're going to solve that problem. And we are driving along, moving with solutions. And we have something that we're working on that will address the Harrison Road widening, and it's a priority.
But it strikes me, but how is that not regional, right?
It is
People
regional.
Sitting.
It's regional,
in
but
traffic on
I'm
that
saying,
road.
well, I guess the point is this, we don't need to solve that problem. Primary option with an RTA. That's where we sit on that. Okay, so the problem is just as important. It's more important for us to solve. So
Right.
you're going to benefit from us solving that problem, but
why
we
do
don't
want
need
our-
an RTA to do it.
Why don't you want our help?
We don't need it right now. We don't need an RTA to.
But, okay, but to Will's question, wouldn't you be better off leveraging your money so you can get the Harrison Road project and get the project out Route 2, a bridge or whatever else, new post? It's all about leveraging in my mind. It's not about doing this project piecemeal, waiting 5 years and doing another project. In the meantime, you've got 6 other transportation problems over here that you haven't solved. Not that the state has endless money, don't get me wrong. But I think it's all about leveraging. That's what about this whole project is. Okay, Lori, and then Monica, and then whoever
So
else.
I think we're going off on a tangent here, and I'm gonna come back to what your question was.
Okay,
All right, and that was, does this change how we do things if
correct.
Chris's model is in place? In my conversations with my fellow board members, Stan's maybe one, this really is about taxes. All right, we had a tax increase this year. We had a tax increase last year. We're probably gonna have to have a tax increase next year. And they already, okay, the gas tax, that's already off the table because that goes to VRE. VRE was supposed to solve our problems, right? Wasn't that before my time, didn't vote on it, whatever. It's not, ridership is not gone up there, but yet a lot of their money is going towards VRE, all right? Then you have the retail tax, all right? It becomes, and your recordation and your transient occupancy, and frankly, where does it end with taxes? We're asking people continuously to keep paying more and more and more and more. And this is another, I get it, I understand, we're leveraging money, but we're not leveraging money from what we have right now. We're going back to the taxpayer well to get more. And it's enough already. And that's where, you know, we can talk about how we're not playing regionalism and all that stuff. My concern is my taxpayer. I have gotten contacted with some very sad stories going on with our 7-cent increase and reassessments. And these are not fake stories where people are, you know, living high on the hog and don't want to pay. These are real life stories where they're having to make a choice.
It's very hard.
And so, and I don't, if you guys aren't hearing those stories, then I think, God bless you. But I am. And I'm done with the taxes. We have got to start, let's talk about how we can leverage what we currently have instead of talking about going to the well again, because those are the people that are hurting.
Okay, that's a valid point. Okay, who was next? Monica.
So just to kind of segue from that, because there were some good points there. I'm living that story, you know, my mortgage hit and it was a little early and I was like, oh my God. You know, when you raise taxes on yourself, my husband was not too happy with it. I work on the budgeting at home and I'm cutting and I'm doing the things. And for me, it's for what am I leaving next, right? I have 7 children. Some of us may not have that many, but I do. And I would like for, you know, them to have a good life where they're not stuck living half of their life on 95. When we moved down here, my husband spent anywhere from 3 to 6 hours just in the day going to Fort Belvoir and coming back for his job. And I know that work has changed for people, but we still have a lot of people who are sitting, wasting their lives. And if you ask someone what's more valuable, their money or their time, they're going to say their time. Unfortunately, we have to exchange it. So it's really, really important that we find some way to solve this. I think if it could have been solved, we have the worst traffic, right, on the I-95 corridor, and we have no RTA. You know, I don't personally think that's a coincidence. I think if it could have been solved without it, it would have been. So that's just my plug and, you know, for that. Regarding regionalism, I think that there is a disconnect and we need to come to some kind of consensus on what does this actually look like? And to me, you know, you look at the roads, the way that we traverse in and out of one another's areas, and it's a network, you know, and yes, it's about taxpayers, but it's also most importantly about these are our neighbors, right? And how are they spending their days? How are we spending our days and our time where we want to be with our families at events or get home from work? If you think about, you know, the network of a body, for example, my hand's not going to say, I need all the blood over here. You can't have any, you know what I mean? Things have to move or it doesn't work, period. And I think that if we can kind of see it a little bit more organically, where there is a flow, you know, whether we generate taxes here or we had more traffic here or there, there is a flow. And our job is to sit around this table and try and get through what Chair Baumke had referenced, which is, you know, our own inclination to say, this is what I want for me or my people, and understand on a larger scale, if we're talking regionalism, we're all our people, and we do have to work together to figure this out. So those are my comments. I just think maybe we can, if we can agree around something like that, then I feel like we have a way forward on this.
Answer to the question, what are we trying to solve? There it is. All those red lines and the dark purple lines are in a 3D map that Connor made, congestion, where there's no dark red and medium color red, and where the line is not very high, there's no congestion. But if you look there, the worst three are US 17 in Stafford, Route 3 in Spotsylvania and the city, and Garrisonville Road up in the north, right? They exist, and then you can see Lafayette and 208 and 206 out there in King George, and we can go on. Like every one of those red lines, but it's a network, and you can see there's no jurisdictional lines on that map, kind of semi on purpose, right? You don't see exactly where the city is there, but you see the congestion that's measured, and it's measured the same across every jurisdiction. And that is what you're trying to solve. Those red lines need to go away or be reduced. Don't always remove them completely, but we can reduce them. So the network is no respect of jurisdictions or persons. It is a network. And every change you make in the network affects the other roads because it puts traffic more there or less there. It's a dynamic network of cars and trucks and people moving on trains and buses. And that's what you're trying to solve is the red. When the red is lower, we're winning.
Well, and then you add in this complexity. All of the units that have been approved in all of our jurisdictions that have not been built. You add those in the system in the next 15 years. People won't be able to move.
And you look at my administrative report from the meeting last month, you remember the maps of the entire state of Virginia, which planning district commissions are dropping in numbers. The southwest of Virginia is losing population, whereas the #1 PDC growth from 2000 and even before until the end of last year, which we have data for, this region, we cut it. We said, okay, what about only during the COVID period? We're still the fastest growing region. So the population is growing. John said to me, I mustn't use things that sound like I'm trying to scare people. I'm not trying to scare you. So please don't see it as scaring you. It's just that there's economic growth here and population growth here. And when you have that, it gets red. And we have to find ways to deal with that.
Yep, Jason.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So, sure you talked about framing the problem. And like everybody, you know, doing software, it's very much what are the requirements? What am I going to get out of it? What should I expect? 100%. In this case, and unfortunately, it's not a very politically expedient or easy answer, only because it's with transportation in Virginia, it gets very technical. And in our case, we are dealing with a situation, population. Yes, the population is increasing, so we got to figure out how to keep everybody moving. We all get that. But then it becomes a matter of going back to the taxpayers. How do we spend that taxpayer money in the most efficient and effective way possible? I'm right with you on that. There's been a change in the rules. And the change is at the regional level. And that VDOT has changed the game in how they are going to provide funding to regions. And the fact is that without a way to provide significant matches of money, significant matches, we will never, ever see the large scale projects that are going to be necessary to meet the demands of all the development that will happen as a result of Kalahari, as a result of the VA clinic, as a result of the massive unnamed project in Stafford, secret Stafford here. And all, and all
Deontay, say it.
Tell us,
You said it.
tell us.
well, no one heard it. And also, you know, I mean, and the other part of this too is that this list of projects will never stop. I actually, you know, because so I'm assuming a couple things. One, there will be an endless list of transportation projects that is going to be required. Number two, because we are dealing with a situation where the rules were quite literally changed on us just in the past year, that we are now in a situation where the only, or not only, but the best answer for the effective and efficient use of taxpayer dollars is a regional transportation authority, because it gives you, it allows us to, you know, with our powers combined, we can build a bigger pot and say this becomes the match and increase the probability of receiving outside dollars that we would not be eligible for otherwise. Spotsylvania County cannot apply for that pot of money on its own. It's literally not in the rules. You cannot touch it. It is for regional applications only. And I believe that we are doing our constituents a disservice in not giving them the opportunity to draw on their state taxes that they pay. It's not just about the what they'll pay in retail, you know, at a insert store here, but what are they paying in state taxes? That's all going to go to Northern Virginia, to the Richmond area, to Hampton Roads now, because we're going to say if we don't end up with a true regional transportation authority, we are going to give your state tax dollars to other places in the state. Now, that's what we're going to be doing if we don't put our hat in the ring and truly leverage every single dollar that our taxpayers pay to its fullest and hardest capability.
All right, Chris.
Yeah, thank you.
Then Drew.
Yeah,
Deontay, did you have your hand up?
No.
Oh, okay, I thought I
He was
saw
just
it.
leaking information.
Okay.
Well, first of all,
I didn't hear.
there's no way I'm gonna cede the ground of fiscal conservative to Mr. Graham over there. Which you do make a very good point, and that's why I do put, what I want is the definition of regionalism to be something, and I'm glad you pulled up this map, because you know what's missing. If you look at where the congestion is our east-west corridors getting to our only north-south mega corridors. So why do we continue to increase the capacity when what we need are connections to get in between those? Stafford, you guys are working on your western whatever network connection with roads. And again, all for it. We actually have, well, I have in my head, and we've gotten a couple lines on paper, but basically a connection to take our Spotsy Parkway all the way out to Route 3 to the west. Now, you guys shouldn't have to pay for that. That's what I'm arguing. Those type of projects shouldn't be there. What should be there are those connections that will take us across the river to 17 from 3, that will connect us to the city better, that will connect the city to Stafford better. That should be the priority that we work on to begin with.
But then I'm wondering if that project is scaring people, because not everybody is for that project. See, I see Drew shaking his head. And maybe when you go back to the 3 projects, you mentioned the bridge crossing out at New Post, right? Maybe there could be some confines when we describe what the top 8 projects would be in the region, that we say something like, you know, the river crossing is, you know, going to be down here, or there would be some parameters around the river crossing. We're going to need so much federal money for that project.
So Chris didn't mention the Harrison Road
Anyway, I did-
interchange, which is another Spotsylvania project which is needed.
yeah, but Drew says they got that one covered in the bank. I want to know where they're getting all their money.
If they got 100 million, sure.
I interrupted you, so go ahead and I'll let you finish.
No, this, I appreciate the back and forth because we also do need a further west road crossing
And the east.
and an east. And unless we get these things in the hopper, they're never gonna happen. And what I was talking about, it was actually 30 years for the Harrison Road project. And for those who weren't, we had a guy on our transportation committee who used to be a board member in the late 80s. And we brought up at the transportation committee, the Harrison Road interchange. And he said, we talked about that 35 years ago, and we're still talking about it. And that's why I want to get these prioritized and done, because the taxpayers deserve, and I'm all with you. I actually voted against that tax increase, by the way.
So did I.
Yeah, but the fact is,
It wasn't high.
my no is still a no.
That's right.
But the fact is that we need to get things finished. And the taxpayers need to have some sort of confidence that these projects will actually accomplish something, because they're paying a lot of money for them. And that's why I think we need to be laser focused on the things that will do what we want it to do. And that's where the regional, and maybe I shouldn't say they aren't regional projects, they're lower down regional projects. Let's put it that way. These are like the top ones, I think, that really bind us together, connect us together, that we're not connected to right now, and we need to be. Because in the future, you guys have Amazon stuff coming, you have, that, you have Bucky's coming.
Data center.
You see what's up there, right?
The
Yes,
Baltimore
ma'am.
project.
Madam Chair, you see
Yeah.
Garrisonville up there?
Yes.
Yeah.
You all talk about Bucky's.
Bucky's.
That Garrison
All right, all right,
Road,
all right,
that Garrisonville Road
Madam Chair.
is
No,
a block,
hear about
Mine Road, because that is going to be.
I can fix that for you.
That's gonna be a regional.
You want to take Bucky's?
Put it down at Thornburg.
I-
Put his hand down.
No.
We-
All right, enough on that subject.
But
Okay,
that's all.
But it
okay,
is a
Drew is
region-
next.
It is a regional problem. Look at that map. It's a regional problem.
Taking it 17.
Honestly, I think this is a great discussion.
This is exactly what
Yeah.
I love when
Yeah.
we had one of these back in February, I think, and.
So just not to, listen to what I'm gonna say, and not from the lens of I'm against the river crossing at Central Park. Okay, but if we're looking at solving a problem. If you look at that center point there where Fredericksburg is, you got your dark line, or dark tower on 17. And then we have the congestion in the center there and Route 3, et cetera. If you punch a hole across, essentially punch a hole from one side to the other, you're not alleviating congestion. You're encouraging congestion at across. No, you are. Let me finish. Yes, you are. Yes, you are. Because it's not congestion there. You're gonna have a problem. It's congestion downstream. Because we're gonna have
the model and we'll bring you the result.
I'm just gonna respectfully disagree. And just say that anecdotally, like driving from my house on River Road to here, I passed 75 cars in 4 miles. That was not even at the peak of, it's worse than that on River Road, okay? In 4 minutes, doesn't sound like a lot, except for, that's a lot. I'm counting them as I'm driving, okay? Imagine you can cross the river from 17 into Central Park. You're gonna have people that don't use Route 3 that now are gonna come across and use those arteries that are downstream from Central Park, Bragg Road, River Road, and Route 3. So this is where we dwell when we're looking at how it affects us, not so much whether or not a problem is being solved there, but it's what is the second and third order effects. And I'm not trying to pick on that particular project.
No, I do want to just ask you, this is a question for you.
Sure.
Have you seen the second and third order effects from, there was a recent presentation, I believe it was before you joined FAMPO.
Mhm.
And so just using the river crossing as an example, because they wanted to take a look and say, hey, okay, so what happens to other roads
Right.
as a result of this project? And they did model that out.
Now, so I did not see that, but does this model include the 700 units in Central Park? Does it include the potential development on the peninsula of South Stafford?
Now, I can't speak to it including future developments, but I will ask staff to send you that
Okay.
that update. I mean, because all you can do is model the best information you have at the time.
Yeah.
And it actually does include second and third order effects. And I do want to point that.
And I'm gonna agree with you, it probably does based on what the data you have currently, right? But if you build access to an area,
Mhm.
it encourages development. Right? So if you build access across the river into South Stafford right there, where the golf course and all that area is, you will encourage density,
Yes.
which increases more people on the roads.
But that density is already gonna be there
It's already-
because of the Silver
approved.
project.
So
So that's,
So that project is modeled.
and yeah, and our USA, you know, only extends up so far on 17. So that density is already gonna happen.
It's-
Yeah.
So it's gonna happen.
But we've got a new model running right now as you're sitting here. We paid, remember, we agreed
Yes.
to pay $8,000. The paid is redoing that, and they've done brand new traffic counts. They've gone out and measured the traffic now, not what the traffic was the last time the model was run, brand new traffic counts. They've got them, all your jurisdictions have been working with us to update the VDOT model. So they've added in all the new developments, all the new population, the expected economic growth out to the year 2050.
Okay.
So while they can't always pinpoint the exact corner that the number of apartments are going to be built on, they know the rough area, and that's all baked into the model out to the year 2050. And we've just spent 9 months validating the model. They're using that data now to rerun it, and you're paying for it. We're getting it quite cheap, frankly, but they're doing it now. And within the next month, we'll give you the results. I don't know what the results are going to be, but I've seen the previous models, so I can guess.
So it probably will show benefit for Harrison Road, et cetera. But right now, River Road and Bragg cannot be widened.
Right.
So anything you introduce at the county city line is not going to be alleviated south and west. So any volume that is able to cross over and then make its way out of Central Park and into Spotsy right there, it doesn't have, not even in the future, we can't widen it. Can't.
I think that is
Time to
one of the
advocate for us.
reasons. I think that's one of the reasons that the state is putting all this effort and a tremendous amount of money, and Dr. Schneider can weigh in here if he wants to, on the new Virginia Public Rail Authority proposals. I mean, I'm amazed at the amount of money that is going into that project, because you're absolutely right. We can't put more pavement down. We're not going to build our way. We've got to do it with other ways. And yeah, it might not be for 10, 15, 20 years, but we've got to have another option for transportation in this state.
Madam Chair, to that point is one of the reasons why we can't put a third rail down in this particular crossing right here unless we built another bridge, correct?
They are building.
Getting a third.
It's actually the project.
Yeah.
Right here.
Yeah.
So I was thinking, wouldn't it be easier to incorporate a rail crossing at New Post? Now you can use that transportation.
That's already been decided, how the rails go.
That was
At New Post?
proposed in the study.
No, that's coming through the city of
Okay.
Fredericksburg, like.
They studied a.
I guess my point was, now you can leverage those billions of transportation dollars that are trying to encourage rail, right? So I agree with you 100%. Also, lastly, I was going to say that who knows what technology is going to catch up and alleviate, driverless trucks and deliveries and drones and flying vehicles and things like that, that's coming
It is.
because it's going to be more efficient. So now you've taken, that's something to look forward to.
All right,
Yeah.
Will, and then we're going to come back to our agenda.
This is why I think it's really important.
Madam Chair, this is Sully. When Will is done, you mind if I chime in?
Absolutely, would love to hear from you.
Yes, I thought the train was talking.
Right.
But sorry,
You're very useful.
I think to your point, Drew, like, this is one of the reasons why I think the RTA works for us as a model, is because we don't know what the solutions.
Mhm.
And to your point, Chris, right? We don't know what the solution is going to be 10 years from now, right? Maybe 10 years from now, what we need regionally is a drone port. I don't know, right? But like the RTA is about building the institutional tools and giving us the ability to leverage the state funds and not linking it to, and I don't have no problem with linking it to the projects I think are going to happen 25, 26, 27, 28. But I think it's about building the institutional capacity. Right? Because we don't, maybe in 15 years, we do need a regional drone port. And that's the thing that's going to solve our congestion, right? And I want to give future generations the ability to kind of leverage those dollars and make sure that we're with their position to pursue those solutions in the future too, right? And I think that's for me, that's what the RTA does, right? It builds that like toolkit to solve the problems without us sitting here in this room in 2024, not knowing what the future is going to be, saying what we think those solutions are going to be 10, 15, 20 years.
Okay, Sully, we would love to hear from you. You have the floor.
Thank you, ma'am. I appreciate it. I just want to take a moment and agree with what Drew was saying earlier. I too believe that depending on how you do it, if we reduce congestion in one place, it's going to invite and in some cases create congestion elsewhere. That it's not a given. It doesn't have to be that way. I don't necessarily trust the models. We're starting to see some of that already in King George or in King George County. As Maryland widened the bridge, made it 4 lanes versus 2, took out the toll plaza, traffic coming off 95, VDOT likes to use 301 as a pressure relief valve for I-95. We've seen lots more traffic in the King George area than we ever saw before. Lots of out-of-state tags, and that's fine. But just understand that by alleviating pressure somewhere else, someplace else, you're going to create it in a different location. And so those models have to be accurate. VDOT is already talking with us about how they want to put in three places. There are a couple of exits to a shopping area in King George y'all may not be familiar with. And then there's an intersection with 205 and Route 3. I'm sorry, with 205 and 301. They want to make it so that you can't turn left onto 301 from either direction. They're prioritizing the throughway traffic going up and down north and south on 301 over local traffic. And they're basing this on models that were done back in 2018 before COVID hit, before the bridge was widened. And they're also, the numbers that they're using are an aggregate number. So they don't come in and look on the weekends and see bumper to bumper traffic from Bowling Green to La Plata. But somehow they want you to get across 2 lanes of traffic, make a U-turn, basically. If you want to go, if you're coming out of Walmart and you want to go north on 301, you've got to turn south, somehow find your way across 2 lanes of traffic and do a U-turn in bumper to bumper traffic on Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. And so their models are a bit problematic. So I kind of tend to agree with Drew, and models are only as good as the data that goes into them.
Sounds like that.
That's very interesting, Sully. I appreciate you sharing that information, and it gives us a reason to, drill down and ask more questions.
And run the model again, Madam Chair, with the fact that the bridge has been widened to double its capacity. The model that they ran 10 years ago or 5 years ago didn't have that information. And with a model, if you feed the wrong information or old information in, then it's going to give you wrong information out. So if nobody fed into the model that you were doubling the capacity of the bridge, then yes, it gives you the wrong information. And it sounds to me like if VDOT is using an old model run of the region and an old study, that you really need to do a quick update, run the model again with all that new information, and you will get an accurate output. But it's no good, as you say, using the models runs from back in the day to try and adjust current traffic. Got to do it.
We brought that to their attention a couple of times, and the response continuously is, "Oh, we've predicted this out through 2045. No need to run it again."
Wow.
That's a bit high-handed in my view.
Can we help them with that?
Okay, thank you. Appreciate that. Chris?
Yeah, if I might just speak to the idea of setting it up for the future, and I'm not opposed to that, but what I'm trying to say is that whether or not it's set up for the future or not, what we need to do is prioritize the projects that we want to get accomplished, because speaking in a 10-year time frame, these projects are not going to be finished until at least a 10-year time frame. And if we leverage it with smart scale, you're looking at, if you win the next round, which is next year, I think there's nothing this year, it's next year because they've gone to 2 years. You're looking at 7 years beyond that for that to even then start with P&E. So, and we're finding out in Massaponax right now that construction down there, that they're actually adding on and changing what they wanted to do down there to the tune of another $40 million, because we voted on that in 2016, so that was 8 years ago. And now the numbers that they're looking at, the project that they had passed is not sufficient. So they're building another $40 million part in there, and they're cutting off our left turn lanes too, by the way. But that is all part of it. So what my whole point is that we need to get on these projects now. I'm not negating that the future, but I also want to set it up for future people sitting around here to figure out their own destination. What I want to do is look 10, 15 years in the future and say, these things will be at least accomplished or in the hopper to be accomplished. And then if we want to start arguing about, or not arguing, debating whether or not we should do this road or that road, that's fine. I just want us to come together with 8, 10, whatever it might be, of big ideas, big things that can actually help, as opposed to going around the edges. And again, no offense to Stafford or you guys, if you have a project in the city and you want to do it, that's great. I'm talking about the big stuff.
Sure.
I'm talking about the stuff that really will lend itself to helping.
Which are mostly not in the city.
And right, the big stuff is that's what this is all about.
You guys do drive it. So,
That's what I'm saying.
yeah,
That's what I
exactly.
want.
All right, so who's got the name of the proposed authority?
Madam Chair,
Yes,
I would like to submit Rappahannock Regional Transportation Authority, the RRTA.
I like it.
okay, what about Rappahannock Area Regional Transportation Authority?
Or ride the road.
Oh, either of those is fine.
Better.
with me.
I'm gonna die on this hill. No, I'm not.
Rappahannock Transportation Authority
Tax force.
RTA.
or
Tax.
It's a dollar sign, like the atomic thing going
I'm
around.
kidding.
As long as there's a cave.
Let's name it after
It's-
Supervisor
it's-
Mullins.
It's gotta have something Rappahannock in it.
that's
Um,
better.
Especially after what happened with the FXBG Go, whatever that was. That
Rappahannock
whole-
Area Transportation Authority,
Maybe say.
Rappahannock Transportation Authority.
Rappahannock Area Transportation.
Biggest begin.
I don't.
I'm pro rata.
I think
Errata.
Think
What?
what?
That's how the evening where I bust out the projects.
Errata.
area, I like Rappahannock.
Rappahannock Area Transportation Authority. I like that too.
Right.
So everyone's pro rata.
Okay, we got that one.
There.
Okay,
Yeah.
what's the proposed board makeup? Board makeup, and voting.
Does staff have some weigh in on that? I know we had talked for a few things
We-
before.
Most of the other places have one per jurisdiction, but because we have small jurisdictions and we don't want state officials on any boards of ours to outweigh the local votes, we suggested 2 from the participating jurisdictions per jurisdiction. So
Should be based on population.
It should be based on, should be.
well, at the end,
Our tax dollars way outweigh the population.
Yeah.
What we will be contributing, if you look at, for example, if you look at the retail tax, we contribute 60, in this model, we contribute 60% of what Stafford does despite having roughly 1/5 the population.
Then it should be based on the revenue.
Well, then we like it.
We'll keep the traffic moving so people can get their
Yeah.
back to us.
so there are 2 possible outcomes here.
Can we just do?
The one possible outcome is that you're going to have only 2 or 3 jurisdictions participating. The other outcome is that the state might decide to put all 5 in without asking us, right? That's why we suggested 2.
Mm.
If you've only got 2 jurisdictions in, which is the minimum number you have to have, it doesn't really matter how many you've got, because you're going to have to get both the jurisdictions to agree to spend the money. One jurisdiction can't So if you have only 2 jurisdictions, it doesn't actually matter. I would just suggest 2 each. But if you have all 5, 2 each still works. What matters more is the voting rights, not the number of people who are on the board.
Okay, anybody opposed to that?
Two.
2, okay.
Wow.
All right, funding split. I'm at 70-30.
70-30.
80-20.
We're gonna make it regional, let's prioritize the regional to Supervisor.
Chris wants 95-5.
Like 60-40.
No, I'm sorry,
He said
It said 60-40.
Oh, Sully said 60-40, okay.
I'm sorry, can we go back to board makeup real quick? So it's 2 each. Are we doing any state legislators at all? Should we have 2 seats?
So every other RTA that I'm aware of in Virginia has 1 senator and 1 or 2 representatives from the Virginia General Assembly. I suggested initially 1 because I'm trying to load the board in the favor of the local people and not, but
Are they voting
it
or
might
non-voting?
be, they are in each case across the state are voting. However, if you have voting rights that you have to represent, it's usually like 50% by member of the board, plus you have to represent 50% of the population. They don't represent a jurisdiction's population, so they don't get counted. Your state representatives don't get counted in the population calculation because they are for the whole area. So when the jurisdictional, so you, for example, if you were on that board, we would count the weight of your population. We wouldn't count the weight of the population of the senator or the delegate if you choose to have them on your board.
That's what I was kind of wondering, why not just give them, like Eleanor Holmes, Norton, she can vote when it doesn't matter, kind of thing, it doesn't actually, but she's on the board and.
What's so funny?
I just think like.
So they're
DC, I'm just saying, I'm just gonna have a legislator there, I don't want them outweighing what we do, nor do I want any unelected representatives. These should all be elected from each locality. Because I don't like any boards that are like
No
that.
city managers, no county
the
administrators.
non-elected people that are on the other boards don't have a vote. They only get to make comments. They don't get a vote.
And one of these also was a 2/3 for any projects to move forward. I forget which RTA it was. But I kind of like that where it can't be, it needs to be a project we all come together and go, yes, this is what we should be doing. And 2/3 is a good proportion, I think, to get to.
So that's the voting rights.
Yep, that's voting rights.
Why are there any criteria that are here? Why are we just making these decisions just by chat? Where's the criteria?
So we've presented those criteria over multiple months already. So we've already.
So there's no copy?
So is this
They're all-
discussion?
They're all online.
Is this discussion or are we just?
Wait, we're discussing this and then we can put it forward to the FAMPO Policy Committee. And then it can all be discussed again. Monica.
Yes, I just wanted to make a quick point to the issue of the state legislators being on the RTA, which I think could have some benefit in regards to the regionalism aspect, because if you have someone, for example, that represents Fredericksburg, part of Spotsy, part of Stafford, I mean, they have to act in interest of all those constituents. So if anything, I think it could be helpful, in that way. So I just wanted to share that.
Madam
Yeah, I have
Chair.
a question about that. The other ones, did the VDOT, VDOT almost always has a representative, right? on all
Yes,
the-
but non-voting.
They're the VDOT one is non-voting.
Lori.
Okay, so
Non-electeds are all non-voting.
you all have not gone to your boards yet
No,
with this
so,
information. So are you gonna, not that it matters to me personally,
right.
but we're gonna make all these decisions and that's what's going to the board?
No, we're not making any decisions.
I mean,
We're suggesting based on the information we have right now, this is what we would be proposing.
Okay.
So our board could weigh in and say, you guys are all wet and we don't want to do it that way and we're gonna
But if
change
we
it.
are going to propose this to our board, shouldn't we have the criteria to go along with it? Yes, it's on your website, but we need to have a package where we get this.
Okay.
So we will pull up, Connor, if you can go to the January, I believe it is, RTA Subcommittee and pull up that agenda
When I say something.
and
That was not directed at.
scroll down.
I think it's, all right.
RTA Subcommittee, go to January, open it up and,
Whether. I believe it's.
Monica, did you ask
sorry,
your
we'll find it for
question?
you. Just give us a.
I did have another question, but we can come to it after.
Sorry, did I go ahead of you?
No, no, it's
Apologize.
okay.
Okay.
No, okay, go back. We have to go back earlier than that. It was to the full policy committee and it was probably November.
November?
It was probably November, full policy committee agenda. We submitted a list of options for folks to discuss.
Where are we going after that? Oh, here we go. Yeah, D1.
There you go. Scroll down.
Yeah. But that's
Okay, so we went through all of these. There were proposed names.
Trans Rappahannock.
Get that.
There, that was the list of suggested things to talk about. The ones in the black square would have a vote. The ones outside of the black square would have no vote, would just give advice. And there is one representative from the House and one from the Senate. One from the CTV, which you can decide to be non-voting, because in some of the RTAs, they are non-voting. So there are two per jurisdiction, one from the House, one from the Senate, and one from the CTV, and you can decide whether those non-jurisdictional ones are non-voting, right? That's fine. That's all debatable. Each RTA does it. So those are the ones we discussed previously. And so I think the other members.
But that's a, but
Dr. Young.
what about the Central Virginia? How, do they have representatives from the General Assembly that are voting?
That we presented this or two before, we've all just
I know, but it's
forgotten
been
a
a
little
while.
bit. Yeah.
That was
So-
4 months ago.
So scroll down, it might be in this presentation.
And a budget ago.
This I would think if I was a delegate, you asked me to
No, but it was.
tell me I can't.
Scroll down, please. Laura.
Yeah, no, we're not.
No, we're not done.
Yeah, they're not gonna set it up that.
No, they're not.
Yeah.
Scroll up, one, slide up.
Did everything.
We're gonna be till 10 o'clock.
So we did present what they did. It must have been in the next set of slides. Just scroll down and see if you can find it. Sorry, Madam Chair, we weren't expecting to.
That's
go over it all
fine. That's
again.
fine. I'm glad you can pull it up.
It
right
might have
here.
been the next month, the previous month.
This isn't gonna be cast
This
as
is why I don't-
anyway. This is all for
This
discussion.
is just
No, it wasn't a dumb question, no. No.
Did it different ways.
correct.
Oh, I was in here. So this predate, this discussion.
Okay, so it's been since January.
There we go.
That's why,
Okay,
There you
there's
go.
Central Virginia.
yeah, I knew it.
Who asked that question?
Uh,
Somebody asked this question, how does Central Virginia do it?
I did.
There
Yep,
it is.
Okay.
12 voting members, you can see there, each jurisdiction has one from the House of Delegates,
I remember this.
one from the
Yep.
Senate, and one from the CTV. Those are the voting members.
Sure.
And then the non-voting members are all the officials that are not
Wow, they've
elected.
got somebody from,
That
VDR
makes it too close.
T.
And then.
Wow, okay.
So VDOT has one, the transit company has one,
And the people
the,
I've been out during a campaign. I will do this.
that's the, actually, that's a,
Elected, you know,
that's a typo there. It's the Metropolitan Transit Authority.
to be run
But
by
anyway.
citizens.
And then the Department of Rail, they're all non-voting.
Right.
Those are non-voting.
Authority in Richmond, so like the tolls that you.
Okay, I beg your
They have that big, another.
I beg your pardon, you're right.
Okay, all right, let's,
So there's
okay,
the
that's
answer to how
helpful.
they do it in Richmond. There's the list. Just for your information.
I think, Monica,
Thank you. Been a robust discussion at least, right? Just wanted to clarify what we're doing here and going through this. This is so that we can get something, some kind of framework so that we can take that back to our boards to discuss.
Right.
Correct. Okay.
this.
I know that can
has
to be a
done.
discussion.
We're
Right.
kind of making the sausage. We can propose this. We
Exactly.
can tell them what our conversation was, how we
Yep.
got here,
Nothing
but it's
tonight
all
is
up to
binding.
them.
Okay.
Right, nothing is
Discussion
binding.
To help.
Okay, the funding split, I heard Sully say 60-40. I'm gonna just say,
Everybody else, I think, said 70.
right, what was the consensus of everyone? Is there anybody, who's back there? Oh, or, Are you all?
Does anyone not
Anybody in the room
70?
want 60-40? Anybody in the room here besides Sully want 60-40?
50-50 or 60-40,
Right,
but I shouldn't be voting because we don't.
no, you can,
I have a comment.
you can comment,
I mean,
That's where I am.
okay, yes,
I was just gonna say, just or passing conversation, the math for us in any kind of scenario is 50-50 at
Best.
best. And there's justification for it from taxpayer perspective.
Okay.
That's just something to know.
okay.
I'm glad you all are ending in
Yeah.
still.
Do you and Chris agree on that?
No, he said.
Probably
different.
not.
Many things, but
Right.
this one will
We
have
do
to.
not.
Yeah, I mean,
I'll be at 70-30.
okay,
That's okay. Yeah.
Okay,
it's fine.
all right, anybody in the room want 70-30? Kind of raise your hand. Okay, 80-20? Any other?
Wait,
Pam,
No.
Dr. Young, what was your, do you have a preference? Anything?
I'm 60-40, but I'm in the minority,
Okay, all right,
the voting minority.
right. And like I said, it could change.
Soon will be.
Okay, so right now we're looking at 60-30. I mean, 70-30. I wrote 70-30. I said 60-30 and that math doesn't even work.
First name's now Matt.
I know, whatever. Okay. Okay,
Regional project.
funding
Sure.
sources to be included. Do we even want to get into that right now?
Yes, I think we should.
I have a thought.
Which
Why
one?
don't we go back and figure out if we can get a funding source without raising taxes? How about that?
We'll do
We never do that.
Yeah.
I thought you were giving input.
I'm just saying, if you really
What does
want,
that look like?
I don't know.
I have an idea,
What's your idea?
Magic.
tax Transurban, I'm serious.
We should rework that agreement at the.
Which is also
Yeah.
taxation.
We should be
Also
putting in
taxation.
a couple of pennies, we should be putting in a couple of pennies on what they're taxing when they come through your county,
Oh,
i.e. Fredericksburg,
too bad that
i.e. well, Spotsylvania.
That
stuff.
agreement can't be changed for what?
99 years.
90?
It actually can be
No,
reworked at the
Fairfax
state.
got it changed,
Yeah.
they got a couple of pennies out of it. How did they do
Okay.
that?
We should come back to that. Put a pin in that.
I gave this to Ian a couple of months ago to look into.
I like that idea.
I gave it to you already. Have you forgotten?
Oh, you did? What was it? There was no answer though.
You asked two questions. The first question I sent through to the Deputy Secretary for Transportation, and he said that there is no current mechanism in the contract with Transurban
Make one.
to allow them to add additional taxation to people using the toll roads. And you then sent a follow-up question, which said, ask him if it can be changed. And I then wrote back and I said to him, I have a follow-up question. Can that contract be changed?
He said it was-
That one he didn't answer.
So I still didn't get an answer.
Well, you got an answer to the
The second
fact that the current contract doesn't allow it, but you didn't get an answer to whether they can change the whole contract.
Okay.
We didn't get an answer
So
to that.
why don't
can.
we ask them for, instead of additional tax on pennies, why don't we ask them for a penny or two off of their existing contract?
They already give $100 and something million every so often to the state. I can't give you the numbers now because you're
Yeah.
surprised.
Some more.
You're
They raise
surprised.
the prices. As
What?
they raise the
So
prices, we
so
raise
they give, I don't know what the number is and I don't know what the period is, so I'm not gonna name numbers, but it's hundreds of millions of dollars that they already inject into the state.
I have a
They could-
question.
they could-
That money doesn't come to you, though. It goes to other projects in the state.
Yes,
coming
Are there any other RTAs that, Ian, I guess maybe could answer this. Are there any other RTAs that derive their source of funding from companies?
No.
Okay.
Transurban.
so what exactly, can you look into for us, what exactly Fairfax got from Transurban?
I will ask the
I would
question.
find out what the addition was.
Fairfax, right?
I think
Well,
it's
Fairfax, but it was probably in
Fairfax
the
Is an
NBTC.
NBTA.
It's the
Wow.
NBTC.
All right.
It was recent.
Bob, are you,
I
Dr.
can-
Schneider, are you aware of
I can
anything
ask
in that?
questions, but I'm not.
Would you know anything?
No, and quite frankly, it's, the toll lanes are actually heavily paid by your residents, so you're
Yep.
just taxing your residents through the toll transfer.
No, the Transurban
Well,
They added, they got. a
Correct.
couple- Okay,
but that's added, and what they're gonna do is they're gonna then raise the toll rates.
well, they've
Offset
been
that.
raising them up and down, so we might as well add a couple
That's
of
the
pennies on there.
dynamic tolling
Yeah.
component which pays for the road, and this is just policy.
But they pays everyone that travels that road.
But the point Bob is making is that that's raising taxes.
They'll pass it on. He's saying that whatever we say, like, they're not gonna keep the toll the same, they will just raise it.
But it's a
ultimately,
use tax.
So they get the same amount of money.
It's
Correct.
those people
So
that
is
use
gas-
that.
So is a gas tax a use tax.
Well,
So is a sales, I mean, a lot of
Everything's
these
a
things
use
are
tax.
use taxes. If you don't buy a big sandwich, you don't pay the tax.
No traffic.
No. Gas tax is a use tax.
Okay, funding sources.
Maybe what's
Jason,
the,
go ahead.
what's
Jason's gonna start the
Okay.
conversation.
none of the rest?
I'm gonna say all three, retail, recordation, and transient occupancy tracks. At the half cent for retail, recordation at 6 cents, and 1% transient occupancy.
Chris?
One thing to keep in mind is that a lot of retail taxes are going down. We did have a reduction in August this year. And so looking towards the future, we just need to leave it as open as we can for the boards to be able to add and change and move around because we don't know what's gonna be.
Right, right.
So is there something better than retail? I mean, retail really, it's just our residents that pay. I mean, you get a little bit of pass-through, first is what I'm thinking.
Does Kalahari fall under retail?
They will, part of
Yeah.
it.
It will, yeah.
Get sales tax on.
So,
And TOT.
Gift,
Gifts,
gift
stuff like
store,
that,
but
and meal
otherwise you'll
tax.
get meal tax.
So we give back a
Yeah.
good chunk of each of those. I don't remember what the number is.
Oh, it's in.
But our meals tax keeps going up. So,
Yeah, we find that interesting that sales tax is coming down, but people are still continuing to eat out.
yeah.
Will?
To Chris's point, that I think you're totally right, because the relative revenue generated by different categories of taxes is always changing. So to me, I think that makes an argument, like Councilor Graham was saying, to have, as broad an array of taxes as possible, but keep each individual one as low as possible, right? And then, that insulates us against, different changes in the economy. Right. And if we do as many different taxes but small, right, we insulate ourselves against that.
Yeah.
So,
Okay.
Councilor Graham, yeah.
May I jump in?
Anybody else? Yes, Sully.
So I actually like the idea of the retail tax because it spreads it across and everybody gets to feel the pain, so to speak. The recordation tax, I'm not a huge fan of because the market is already so stinking expensive. And we're kind of pushing that down on younger people who are coming up and trying to buy their first homes. And it's in a very challenging market time.
That makes a good point, and especially when you're looking at workforce housing or just housing in general. Monica?
Yeah, I want to agree that I think we should keep the 4 of them. I mean, if we're looking at this, it's kind of like you want a portfolio. So if you have multiple different things, then you have a little more security in what's going to be generated for the out years and what projects we can really plan for. The more we narrow it down, the harder it will be to plan and project what projects we're going to do, which is the whole purpose. So.
Dr. Young?
Can you keep everything in, but then decide which one per year, like, can you?
We
decide
could.
one? Yeah,
We could just keep everything in here, not make any decisions on the
Then-
percentages
yeah,
and,
and then every jurisdiction decides when the time comes, which ones they want to put something to, but leave everything open. that
No,
it
you-
will be
you
zero.
No, it's for
we
everyone.
would all have to agree.
I understand, but agree, like, say, for example, recordation tax. There's a line item, but everybody agrees that it's gonna be 0, because everybody decided not to do that.
I think the rates are set in the enabling statute. I don't think. we
Yeah,
can
the
change
state's
the
gonna
rates
set it.
Yeah.
Yeah,
The state's gonna tell us what it's gonna be.
You either have it in or you have it out. The thing you can do, which these different RTAs have done, is changed which of the taxes they want to have in and which ones they don't have
Every
in.
year.
No, you decide at the beginning and it's set.
Yeah.
To
Including
change,
the rate.
Until
To
you go to
change-
the General
Yes,
Assembly and ask for a
including the
change.
rate, because in order to change it, you can't change it as an RTA. You have to because the law says that and this has been tested in court. Hampton Roads paid a
Oh,
heavy
right.
price for this. The law says that you cannot tax the residents. The law says the state has to do the taxation on behalf of a transportation authority, which has got specific goals. And you have to stick to the rules of the authority in spending the money which gets audited. So only the state is allowed to tax. If the state implements tax and collects it on your behalf, on behalf of the RTA, they then pass it on to you. You don't do the taxation yourself,
Correct.
and therefore it's difficult to change every year because you've got to get the General Assembly to then vote again to change this thing. It's not unless there's a sliding scale, like for the gas tax, there's a built-in scale that the controller or somebody has to make
Right.
a determination, and there's a whole thing like that. But the RTAs generally
Yeah.
the RTAs don't have that. They say, we're gonna have these two taxes and please collect it on our behalf. And if the state agrees, which they vote, they then collect it on your behalf and put it in a fund, and a fund gets created. And then they once a month, I think, something like that, they transfer the money into the fund, which the RTA then makes the determination as to what it gets spent on. So the state doesn't get involved in which projects get funded.
Yeah, they're just a pass
They
through.
just
Okay,
raise,
what's the consensus of the group here?
keep it.
The four.
Okay,
No gas tax.
No gas.
no gas
We can't
tax.
do the gas.
I
tax.
don't recommend the gas
Can I,
tax.
can
It's
I
a
ask
bad
a
idea.
question?
Yes, Lori.
Is there a way that this can be put on a referendum?
Yes, I guess. It depends on how the legislation gets written.
Because frankly, I mean, I am having so much heartburn about these taxes again. I cannot, we're sitting around this table and we're determining yet another way to tax somebody. And I would much prefer the citizens weigh in on, just like with the 1% sales tax for school construction, right? Which went
We didn't get that
nowhere.
option.
But I'd like to be able to say to the citizens, you control the destiny, not us elected officials.
We could request that of the legislature.
I mean,
That's all this is we.
I would much prefer it being something that says, what do you all want? And then it's up, because
The thing that
So-
is difficult with the referendum is not to do the referendum, but if you give the public 7 options of different taxes, it's not gonna work. You have to say, do you want an RTA under no
Right.
conditions?
Yes.
And then they can vote yes or no. You can't
Yeah.
go and say,
right,
do you want a retail tax? Do you want to?
no, it wouldn't be
You can't get into that with the public. It's too complicated.
no, it
So-
wouldn't be a menu item. It's either, if
Yes or no?
everybody says, we're gonna go ahead and we're gonna do recordation sales and transient occupancy. And we say to them, okay, this is on the referendum. Do you all want to increase these items? Hey, if it passed, I'd say I was wrong. Everybody feels like they can do this, but I don't think I don't think my citizens would be on board. But I'm
But
willing
if
to
you
say I was
listed,
wrong.
if you listed for them, just like on a bond issue, if you listed what specific regional projects were gonna get accomplished with
Well-
that, then, but, so I'm gonna play devil's advocate with you, okay?
Okay,
I don't think that the average taxpayer, because they're so busy with their own lives, that they have the time, the energy, and the knowledge to spend. I mean, look at all the constitutional amendments that all of us have either voted yes or no on, and how many of you read the actual packet, the pamphlet that had the fiscal impact in there? Okay,
I crushed it.
yeah, okay, and how many citizens did you share that fiscal impact with? Probably not very many.
Enough.
So.
Enough,
so if-
okay.
If you buy a pair of shoes for $100, if I understand this correctly, the retail sales tax will be 0.5%. So it's not gonna be felt in this colossal.
But
catastrophe.
that doesn't matter. This is going against Lori's principles,
Principle.
right?
it is.
Yeah.
That's what her beef is. But here's my thing. We were elected by the people, all of us sitting around this room except for Dr. Schneider. Okay, and I feel that they put us in these roles because they felt that they had confidence in us and our ability to make decisions on behalf of them. So whether I vote yes or no, I feel like I have the information. Look at the 5 meetings we've had to get where we are, and we don't even have all the answers yet. So I agree with you, but I don't think the average person would understand that out on the ballot.
But what I'm getting from my citizens is stop taxing. Stop, just full stop, done. And I realize that.
But you did a 7-cent tax increase last
Oh, we
year.
did.
We did 9 cents and we did 6 this year. So we're getting the same emails.
And this is.
But that's all about, that's all about
That's level
school
funding.
construction
That was
for
level
us.
funding, Madam Chair. We didn't even increase, we only increased one department by one ask.
I don't get a lot of that. I get a lot of why is Route 17? They keep putting in something and carrying it out because that's what happens on R-17, right? We have a bad situation where,
bridge?
yeah, the bridge.
Oh, my God.
But I can't get to the city in time, or I can't do this. I get concerns about safety on Route 2 since we've had 4 fatalities.
Yeah.
But people.
We do, I mean, I definitely do.
I get calls of why does it take me 40 minutes to get from Route 208 down to Route 1? Because that is horrible down there. And so I'm with you 100%, Lori. I'm not, and remember here, we have no power to do anything. We're just.
Right.
There's a committee.
Right.
Gotta keep reminding
And
myself.
then, even then, we don't have any power because the state can still come in and say, we don't like anything you put here, this is what we're gonna do, and you have to follow it. So I'm hoping that at least through this and through having representatives here of the representatives, that they can take the information back. So if anything is crafted, it could actually help.
Or they just stand down and don't do anything, but okay.
And they might not, but then, and I posed this at the board meeting the other night. If not an RTA, how do we fix the problems?
Right.
And I'm not for, I actually like the idea of of tolls. Should put a toll at the top of the state and at the bottom of the state.
Well, we do have them at the top of the state.
Well, Delaware does it. I
They
went,
were grandfathered in for the.
well,
they
that's
built that road
stupid.
up
And
first.
so, and
They didn't have any tolls when I grew up in Delaware. It's all new.
right, and it's not like anybody really wants to go to Delaware, so they get you when you go. But,
Wow.
Spotsylvania voted against the.
Strike that from the record.
Just saying.
no, I know, but I'm just saying that there needs to be other ways to get.
All right.
revenue than just the same old.
Add a couple of pennies to it.
Yeah, all right, Monica, and then we've got to.
Yeah, I'll be really quick. I just wanted to make space for this because I know that there is stress over the taxes and I hate it too. It's been really, really hard for everybody, our family included, but to me, I joke a lot. And
One
I'm like,
less Starbucks, she said, please, what?
I joke a lot and I'm like, oh, tax the billionaires. But the reality is that could happen. That would be amazing. I mean, if you closed one federal loophole, you could generate $1 trillion in 5 years. And we're all down here trying to figure it out and not kill each other, right? But in the meantime, we have to take care of our people. And this is a really big deal. It's one of the biggest issues in our region. We have to find a solution. I don't see a solution other than the RTA. And unfortunately for that, we need these taxes to support it if we do it. And we do have an opportunity to at least request something formally that has good structure to it and say, if you do it, this would be the most amenable, that we could get to.
And maybe if you wanted to put it on as a referendum, if there were other localities, however it works out, you could put that on as a referendum, and then if it passes, you could join, and if it doesn't, that's another
Maybe.
option.
Actually, what if
Yeah.
I really like that,
I'm like,
right? Because the idea that, at the very bottom of your list of decisions, you have this notion that remaining or immediately contiguous jurisdictions may choose to join the authority at a future date should they make the request. What if that is just by referendum, right? Write that into the enabling legislation. If it's
Right.
they are welcome to have a referendum But that way, those of us who want to move ahead can move ahead, and those of us who might want to join later can put it to their citizens.
Well, that's my suggestion here, which is not what anybody else has
$9
done,
million.
but I'm suggesting here that there's an opt-in rather than an opt-out, right? So we put in the list, these are the ones that would like to be in now because they're ready and they have great needs.
That's.
And these are the ones who say not now,
Not.
but we'd like
Better than-
to not be banned from joining later. So there's an opt-in
Oh, help.
clause. That's
Right.
my suggestion on this.
So what would that look like if you opt, or say, we do this and it's going great for 2 to 3 years, other localities want to opt in? They're like a penalty where they have to wait.
I know.
Where they
And I
receive any
you guys
money?
have shown.
How does, what do you think that would look like? Because if you opt in, but you haven't been putting anything in the pot, but then you're gonna have, how does you start?
So with the last RTA, Central Virginia one, they had a 12-month delay setting up the infrastructure before they started the taxation. So there is already time delay built in before it actually starts.
Gonna work.
I'm guessing, because they did it last time. Last time they didn't wait a year. It was like we approved the legislation.
Yeah, but I
now.
think what Deonte's asking, how do the dollars get split up? Kind of come along at a later date.
So if, I mean, it's fairly common sense and under what we in the rest of the world call common law, which you don't really have here, but the thing is that it's obvious if you're not putting 1 cent in, nobody's going to give you any money for your project, right?
Right.
So you can find a way to put that in the documents, but that's just sort of common sense, that if your jurisdiction says, okay, we're in, but now you haven't put in 1 cent yet. So for the first 6 months, nobody's going to say, oh, great, we're going to fund your project because you're not contributing. You're not giving it
Remember, it'll be
regulated.
self-regulated, yeah.
Okay. What else?
Said 9 o'clock, I was right.
All right.
So did you agree on the taxes? I can't recall.
I think everybody said, except for Sully was interested in taking out the grantor's tax recordation. But it seemed like the rest of the group was interested in leaving everything in.
It doesn't bring in a lot of money, so I'm not totally.
Right, but I respect what he's saying. I appreciate that perspective and agree.
So what's the
we're-
general feeling?
That we're gonna leave.
Yeah, so recordation tax, it's a cent. 6 cents on $100. That's, for every jurisdiction combined, it would bring in 2 million. So that's not, okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so it sounds like the 4
All
on the
right.
blue sheet.
Okay, anything else?
So just to recap, you've all had some sort of consensus discussions. No decisions were made tonight because none of this is legally binding to anybody anywhere. What we'll do is bring this back to the policy committee so that the policy committee can recommend officially something to the state. But you still have now time to talk to the jurisdictions about this. And you might want to bring some changes to what you've said tonight. That's fine. I'm facilitating, but I just want you to all clear, you didn't vote for anything tonight. This is a recommendation. You're not making a decision. You've still got to take it to the policy committee. The policy committee can then vote because they're the legal body, and their vote is again just a recommendation to the state. It's also not binding on the state or on anybody until the state takes action, which they may or may not do. We don't
Well,
know.
if you make a recommendation to the state, the
Yeah.
state's gonna take it
That's
and run
right.
with it.
That's right.
They didn't on the schools one.
Well, but that's different. Dr. Young and then Monica.
So, my quick question, Arthur, is, I'm sure you're gonna ask them later on, if you're available for our work session.
Sure.
Oh, yeah.
Two of you when.
You tell me when and I'll be
Yes,
there.
that Chairwoman, Bob is gonna.
I don't know every answer, but I'll answer. all.
Yeah, bring him with you. And then the second question would be, if you take out, Spotsylvania and King George out of the
Carolyn.
funding.
Caroline.
Yeah, out of the funding, it goes down to little. How do you plan on putting, like, which projects then, based on what you said, will we be able to afford?
We would take out the projects from the jurisdictions that are taking up their funding.
But I think Well, but I think also going back to what Chris and Drew were saying is we have to look at what are we trying to solve? There's only 2 jurisdictions. What are we trying to solve? What are regional projects that
Affect those 2 jurisdictions.
affect those 2 jurisdictions?
So
So,
need a new problem.
right,
Build the bridge, do it.
So we would, for example, if Spotsylvania says no, and that's what the state approves, we would then take the Harrison Road project, et cetera,
Yep.
out of that pot.
Yep.
Because there's no money coming in for it.
Yep.
correct.
Let's get a good idea of, say, just Stafford and Fredericksburg, we're include half the number. It's, that accounts for about half of the population.
Okay,
Spotsylvania, King George and Carolina are about half. Fredericksburg and Stafford are about half.
That could
So
be a
it's
rough
gonna be, instead of getting
Okay, that's good.
$1 you're gonna get a little over 20.
Well, that's not accounting for the difference of population.
No, it's, but it's
No, that's just
retail taxes.
Oh, retail tax, gotcha.
That's just
All
the
right,
income, that's not.
Okay.
I see. Sorry.
all right, Monica and then Will.
Yeah, when is our work session again, or would that he would be coming to
We
speak
haven't.
at?
No, we haven't set it up. We have one the end of the month.
Okay. That was my question, because I know we have one the end of the month, but on the 17th is the next FAMPO meeting. So I wanted to make sure our board was able to hear from FAMPO staff before that next FAMPO meeting, if we can figure that out. That would be ideal.
Or we just wait till the.
I'll come,
We might have to wait till a later meeting.
I'll come
because-
anytime, anywhere. You tell me, I'll be there.
Right.
Okay, so the idea is it will
We
be,
have to have an answer
okay,
that
That's my job.
at the June FAMPO meeting. It may have to be different.
okay, I just wanted to make sure that we weren't coming in expecting a vote on anything without our board hearing, so,
I mean, I just think with everything else we have going on,
okay.
it probably won't happen, just.
September.
And so the work session that Ian and maybe John would come to brief us at would include all of the information we sort of formed some kind of consensus around today.
On the
Right.
package, that's right.
And include the projects, potential
Yes,
projects.
And our work session is the last Wednesday. I think it's June 26th. So, but I.
Okay.
Oh, it better be before then.
Why?
If I thought we had agreed to send this letter out in June, did we not?
Yeah, but I mean, the only thing is if our board can get another, well, and that doesn't have to happen. I mean, that's not really that critical.
Okay.
I mean, they start working on things the beginning of, in the fall. So, I mean, it's just, it may not be able to happen. Being realistic. Yep. Will and then Lori.
Ian, would you be able to write up just like a 1-page of the consensus such as it is?
Sure.
Answer to this question, because I'm thinking just for council, I would like to be able to at least share a 1-page with them, right, in preparation for a longer.
We'll just make bullet points out of this.
Yeah,
and
yeah.
I can write it up in the morning.
Actually,
yeah.
you can just,
Yeah.
could you generate that for everybody?
Yeah,
Yeah.
thank you.
I'll call it a summary of discussion or something.
Okay,
Yeah.
I like.
Non-binding summary of discussion.
Yeah, I'll just tell you, our board tried to get another 3 work sessions in before the end of June. We got 2 in May and dates just, it's summer. So,
So just to clarify, so that I write you the correct note, it's the Rappahannock Area Transportation Authority, 2 members per jurisdiction. Did you decide on whether you want to have officials that are non-elected to be advisory or not?
Yeah, I think that.
Advisory is fine.
advisory, yeah.
Okay, advisory. The funding split, you opted for the 70-30. Did you decide whether the retail tax should be at the 0.5, half, 0.05? And you opted, the consensus was to keep 4 taxes on the sheet, but no gas tax.
Correct.
That's the consensus.
Correct.
I'll write that up for you and send it over.
Okay, Lori.
Madam Chair, I think just so it's clear, because Caroline wasn't here, and I know you said, well, they voted with their feet. But I think we should have something,
I will send it to every member of the
And
policy
absolutely.
committee
and so that it is clear exactly, because I don't want them not to be represented.
No, I will send it to everyone that we invited to this group, including Carolina King George West.
Absolutely.
I'm sure what they will do with it, but I will send
Yeah,
it
right,
to.
Absolutely, absolutely. Okay, anything else?
I'll send it to Leon as well as a staff.
Anybody have anything else to add that's not even related to the RTA?
No,
They won't be.
Where are we going?
Not
for,
part of FAMPO.
The after action.
Okay.
I know my kids are in the lobby. They
Okay.
Talk too much.
Motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
Second, all in
Aye.
favor?
Aye. Thanks, everybody.
Good work, everyone.
Thank you for the schedule.
Yeah,
Thanks,
everyone.
Sully. Thanks, Sully.
Subcommittee meeting.
We have another RTA meeting next week?
No.